There we go. Okay. Yes. No, yes, I will answer any questions that are not related to paper one text types in specific until the end. But if you have questions while I'm doing my presentation, you can ask. Just try not to ping me incessantly, because I would rather not have to deal with that today. Yeah, can you all see my slides? Okay, perfect. So, like I've said before, I'm just repeating myself because now I'm recording so that people who are recording can skip if need be. I'm going to go through paper one text types for both LangLit and literature. Literature is a lot easier because it's very limited. LangLit has so many text types that, like, it's literally not an exhaustive list. But I'm going to go through some of the most common ones and some of the most uncommon ones. So I'm going to go through, I think in my list was infographic website / web page, speech. I think I put a letter in there as well. I don't remember if I did. And a bunch more. And then for literature, it's prose, drama, and poetry, basically. Those are the 3 ones. I did everything I discussed for the lit thing, I did discuss in my paper 2 session, but I know some people weren't able to do that, so I'll go through it again today. Yeah, a few housekeeping things. Just be civil in chat. Yes, it's recording. Yes, I will send the slides. I've said that 16 million times, but I know I'm still gonna get questions for it, so I'm making sure that I'm putting it out there. Our advert's gonna be covered. I don't remember, but maybe. I don't remember. I'm being so for real. I don't remember. I made this presentation a while back, so I don't remember. Yes, for lit, it's prose fiction plus nonfiction, drama / screenplay, and song lyrics / poetry. That is right. Just the tips one. I haven't gone through a paper 2 writing session. I just mean I did a paper 2 session on tips and tricks, which has some of the same information that I'll be giving for lit today. Okay. I'm gonna get started. If you have questions, put them in chat. Don't be jerks. And if you're watching the recording, you're not even gonna, yeah. Anyway. So, if this loads. Okay, lovely. So we're gonna go through non-literary first. First is infographics. Infographics are... Okay, infographics are chronological... Sorry, what am I saying? Infographics are both visual and textual text types, where it has a really strong interplay of both visual and textual features. So that's why IB loves infographics, because it immediately becomes the classic question of how does the author of this infographic interplay visual and textual elements to serve its purpose type thing, you know? That kind of thing is very common in an English LangLit paper 1, and the idea is that you want to be able to analyze as much of it as possible, which is why they do the visual and textual thing. Okay, I'm gonna look at this thing that Shri sent. P1 examiners say that it's less probable to get a infographic or comic strip or anything from May 2024, and more probable to be an Instagram post, travel, writing, opinion, article, product review, PSA, any other new and unique stuff. I mean, it's possible, but I'm inclined to say that they just like infographics in general. infographics is something that they find really easy to use because you can very easily ask the, like I said, visual and textual question. It's not a bad approach to look at some of the rare ones because you never know in which direction IB is going to go. Because IB is like all over the place, especially considering everything that's been going down in the last year. So it's just, you never know which direction they're going to go, but you can always predict that there's going to be one more visual text and one more textual text, if that makes sense. Where the visual text is usually, in the last few years, has been an infographic, but as Shri said, it might be an Instagram post, it might be a PSA, it might be an advert, something like that. And in terms of, yes, we will also go through non-visual text. I'm not going through all the text types possible because that would be like a 6-hour session. I'm only going to go through some of the ones that I'm like more familiar with. If you have questions about a specific one, you can still ask, and I will try to be as helpful as possible in that sense. But yeah, I think generally speaking, would I discuss Instagram post? No. Is it recorded? Yes. Literally, I told you guys, I'm going to say it 16 million times and it's still going to be asked in chat. This happens every single time I do a freaking session, bro. I cannot function. Anyway. Well, okay, I'm not even going to respond to that. Anyway, so first we're going to go through structure. So infographics can be in 5 different general structures. There's chronological, hierarchical, problem solution, cause and effect, and comparative. Those are the 5 main overarching types of structure that an infographic can have. The first is chronological structure. So the chronological structure, if everyone knows, chronology is going in order and in a specific timeline. So you're going in a linear timeline, you're going from the beginning to the end, essentially. And chronological structures are usually used when you're trying to show a timeline for either events or processes or something like that. So for example, an infographic on the creation of the smartphone, for example, could be a could be a example of a chronological structure, because they're going to go through how it started and how it's going and how they've evolved in the sense of like how they've improved over time, which is why it's going to be in a chronological order. I'm going to have to lock chat if there's more of this happening. Okay. Second is hierarchical structure, where it will usually show information in a hierarchical order, which is, everyone should know what a hierarchy is, but generally it would use like a pyramid or a tree structure to show the relationship between different levels of information. And those structures can either be for general information that is interconnected in a hierarchical structure, or things like a company's organizational chart, like if you want to show who's, for example, the CEO and then the CFO and the COO and then everyone below them in a hierarchical structure, for example, that would be presented in a infographic that is in a hierarchical structure. That was a lot of, I said hierarchical like 6 times there, but like you understand what I mean. The point of a hierarchical structure, no, I'm Actually, no, I'm not going to talk about that. I was going to talk about, yeah, food pyramids is an example given here. Like, that's a very obvious quote unquote hierarchical structure where it's in a pyramid, in a triangle structure, and it basically gives all the information of the food pyramid. I'm just saying the same words again, but like it's basically all the food groups but in a hierarchical structure, which is a really good example of if you don't understand what a hierarchical structure is. My brain cells are barely holding on in this chat, I swear. Okay, the next is the problem solution structure, where the structure will present a problem and then offer a solution to the problem. Which, yeah. So basically, for example, it'll be like, the title could be something like, "The ozone is depleting!" exclamation mark. And then the rest of the infographic is going to be stats on why that is happening, and then things that we as readers can do to quote unquote prevent or solve the issue. And usually there will be a lot of visual aids to illustrate the benefits of the solution. So for example, in my ozone example, I said example 16 times there as well. Basically, in the ozone infographic, for example, there could be two Earths, and one will have the depleted ozone and the second will have quote unquote healing ozone, and then they're gonna talk about the benefits and stuff like that. There's a lot of I think this is probably a really common structure. Oh, I'm getting a call. Give me a second, guys. One sec. Sorry, that was my mom. That wasn't even me adulting, that was just my mom. But okay, give me a second. Let me just do this. Okay, lovely. Can we please keep chat relevant to the topic? Let's not talk about football or Fortnite or Genshin. Why are we talking about Genshin? What the okay. Anyway, there's a slow mode in chat now, so unfortunately you will only send one message per 30 seconds, which is not a lot, so you should be fine. Yes, sorry for being AFK for a second. That was my mom. Do I think infographic is gonna come this year? I don't want to make predictions because you never know what's going to happen, but I believe infographic is really, really possible. But that's a personal opinion. I just think that because the IB loves infographics in general, they love infographics in terms of many subjects, not just English, LangLit, where like, because they started including infographics in, what's it called? I've forgotten what it was. In geo, in like other subjects and stuff like that. And that stuff is really common, if that makes sense. I'm not going to say 100%, because again, the IB is very, very, very unpredictable. So they can do anything. Okay, let's not do that. Let's not do that, guys. Can you not? My fucking God. Okay, give me a second. Literally, you're gonna have to give me a second now. You're literally gonna have to give me a second because now I have to mod. Fucking hell, bro. This is insane behavior. Why can you guys just not be normal? Okay, sorry guys, you're literally gonna have to give me 2 more minutes because this fucking... My lord, okay. Why can you guys just not be normal? Okay. Oh dear God. Okay, anyway, that's done. Lovely. No, it was not about looking at chat. If you guys say fucking slurs in the chat, I literally have no choice. Anyway, what stuff is really common? I was saying infographics. Infographics in general, the IB really loves, because of, like, in general, like, regardless of just being English, it's really, really, the fuck? Okay. The IB just started loving infographics recently, started putting in geo, started putting in, like, other stuff. Like, there's a whole paper for, like, there's a whole section in the paper 2 for infographics. So, like, they really like infographics, which is why I'm inclined to say that they're likely to put one in the paper 1 too, even though there was, what's it called? Even though it was there last year, is what I was saying. Okay. let me move on really quickly. Okay, so the other structure, other than the three I already discussed, there's two more, is cause and effect, where it will present a cause and then show the effect of that cause. So this is kind of similar to the problem and solution, other than the fact that here it's just giving you what's happening right now rather than giving you solutions to fix the issue that's going on. So for example, it will say, I'm going to go back to the ozone example. It's saying chlorofluorocarbons are ruining the Earth's ozone. And then they're going to talk about how that's causing the ozone depletion and stuff like that, even though that's not a thing anymore. But like, you know what I'm saying. So that's what a cause and effect structure would look like. And then the last structure is a comparative structure, where the structure presents information by comparing two or more data points or ideas. So it will show two different... Okay, if you guys have resources to share, don't share them in this chat. Share them in the English LangLit chat. There's nothing stopping you from sharing it there. I'd rather the chat be about questions that you guys have rather than be about resources. Anyway, comparative structure has... these are the different structures of infographics. It says it on the top of the slide. The comparative structure will usually compare two different ideas or two different data points, and use charts or graphs to show differences or similarities, sometimes both, where it will compare and contrast essentially data and stuff like that in order to result in a comparison. And oftentimes this will be used for products and things like that, where you are comparing, for example, if a company is trying to compare its product to the same product from other companies. So it will say something like, here's the specifications of our product, here's the specifications of every other generic product in the market, and then they're going to try to show theirs being better than the generic product in the market, stuff like that, because the comparison will draw your attention, and you will directly be able to see, like as a reader, you'll be able to see what the differences are and be able to infer why something is better. Yes, it is different structures of infographic. It's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to get all like frustrated with you. There's just a lot going on at the same time, and I'm just trying to deal with it all. Okay, yeah, so conventions. I'm going to talk through 20 different conventions, which is a lot, but that's like everything that you could possibly have in an infographic, because an infographic by like definition is a graphic of a lot of information. So an infographic usually has a lot of sections, a lot of things in it, and you need to be able to identify what they are and what they do. So obviously there's a title. Everyone knows what a title is. Everyone knows what a title does. I'm not going to talk about that. There's headings and subheadings. Now, headings and subheadings will usually work in terms of organizing. So they'll organize large chunks of information into smaller sections, and improve readability, which is the main reason why headings and subheadings are used in general. And then there's icons. Icons are like small symbols, simple symbols that are used to represent more complex structures or complex points. So for example, not really like complex, but like for example, a mail symbol will be used instead of saying email, because the mail symbol makes more like draws your attention to it more than say like actually physically just saying here's the email, you know. And then there is charts and graphs, which are just visual data representations. They help because people are more drawn to visuals than they are to texts. They also help to organize data, also make conclusions easily drawable from the data. Rather than just having a table of data, you'd rather have a bar graph or a line graph or a chart of some kind, a pie chart, because that will give you the data or the data, however you say it, in a more digestible manner. There's list and bullet points. Lists really work well in infographics because there's so much information to be given. So the lists and bullet points will basically help to concise or condense the information into concise and easy to read summaries. And then there is callouts and annotations. These will be things like text bubbles or squares or boxes or some kind of shape that will draw your attention to that specific information. And a lot of times it will be either some kind of fact, some kind of statistic that directly needs your attention, or it'll be something like join us. And yeah, so then it can work like that. Next is color. Now, color is used, that is the worst spelling of color I've ever seen in my life. Hold on, I need to change that. I don't know how I did that. I need to change that before sorry. I will not be able to function if it's spelled C-O-L-O-R. Okay. Load. It's loading. It's loading. It's loading. There we go. Okay. So, okay, I will be sharing the slides. I will be sharing the recording. It is being recorded. Sorry, how did we go back? We're here. Color. No, it's okay. Yeah, so the color is used for multiple reasons. There is obviously there's color theory. There's colors that are included as a, hold on, let me check this. Okay, yeah, I need to check whether the recording was actually recording my mic, because if it wasn't, I was gonna crash out. Okay, the colors, there's color symbolism, and then there's also colors in infographics, which is used to visually differentiate certain sections. So for example, in an infographic, sometimes they'll put different subheadings and sections in different colors, and in different color boxes or shapes, which basically helps to just differentiate between the things, and again is easier on the eyes, helps attract the reader's attention visually, things like that. Typography, font type, style, font type, size, and style are all important. There's also if things are bolded, if things are in all caps, if things are all small, if things are in different colors, if things like that. That's all part of typography. And then there's imagery. So this is not the literary device of imagery. This is imagery in infographics, which is just high quality images or illustrations that visually support the content. So like I said, in the ozone example, for example, they could put like a picture of the earth, or two pictures of the earth and stuff like that, which is part of imagery, which helps you visualize basically. And then there's sources and credits. So any information about the sources appeals to the ethos of the reader, because you're providing where the sources are from. It improves overall credibility. Pathos, ethos, and logos can always be included in the analysis. What I wouldn't recommend is trying to only talk about pathos, ethos, and logos. I would recommend you talk about it as one feature. It's called rhetoric. The rhetoric language, or that is what it's called. Yes. So I would recommend you do something like that, and that's a specific convention that you're talking about, and then you can talk about different literary devices within that. So you can talk about the rhetorical structures of pathos, ethos, and logos. Because I've seen people write essays that are only about pathos, ethos, and logos, where they have 3 paragraphs. One is pathos, one is ethos, one is logos, which I wouldn't recommend, because that's not the only thing that you want to talk about in any essay, let alone one that is supposed to be driven by the text as a whole and not just pathos, ethos, and logos. Yes. More conventions. There's 10 more. So there's flowcharts, which again just everyone should know what a flowchart is, but it's just a diagram that visualizes a timeline, complex information. It divides it into it's usually used for processes and things like that. There's visual metaphors, so there will be like, it's basically similar to symbolism, where a small symbol or a icon is used to represent a bigger part of or like represent a bigger concept or idea in the place of text. So they'll use visual stimuli rather than texts. There is, okay, yeah. And then there's timelines. So timelines are really common in the chronological structure of infographics. Yes, the slides will be sent. Yes, it's being recorded. The recording will also be posted. What was I saying? Timeline. Yeah. So the timeline is mostly used in chronological structure of infographics, although it can be used in others as well. But the timeline basically will show the it is a visual representation of chronological sequence of events. So it'll be from start to end of something. And that can be used for many different things, like I explained in the chronological structure. And then there is, okay, let me finish this convention and then I will take questions and I will answer them. So there's statistics and facts. Statistics and facts obviously appeals to the logos of the reader. Any statistic, any fact provides in logical reasoning, which therefore appeals to the logos, and any data-driven point is good. There is, and then key takeaways / summary, so that will usually highlight the main point or insight, and basically summarize everything that the infographic is talking about. And the reason they do that is if someone's looking at it passing by and not actually reading it, it captures their attention and you know what the infographic was about, even if you haven't read the whole thing. Next is labels. There will be some labels in things like diagrams and things like images, where it's labeling certain things. It's labeling, sometimes the labels will not be direct and they might be ironic, which is a literary device, but they might still be ironic. So they might be more satirical than actual factual labeling, but that's a different device altogether. But labels exist to provide additional context in general. There is emojis. Everyone knows what an emoji is. I don't know how to explain, but they just add personality and humor to the infographic. There's quotes and testimonials. This again appeal to ethos and logos. Actually more ethos than logos, but yeah, because it's appealing to the credibility of the product or thing that the infographic is talking about. If it's quotes from a scientist, if it's quotes from consumers, it just adds credibility and social proof. Next is comparison. So like I said, in the comparative structure, there's comparisons in infographics as well. What it would look like if you did something, what it would look like if you didn't do something, or what our product is versus other products, things like that. Those are comparisons that can be drawn. The last is interactive elements. Any interactive element, things that are clickable, there's QR codes, things like that. That's all interactive. That makes the infographic more engaging and memorable, and the reader is more likely to interact with it directly and therefore is likely to gain more information from it. Okay, that was all the conventions that I can think to talk about for infographics. I will now take questions and I will answer them as long as they're related to infographics. Okay, there were other questions. First, let me go up because there was questions while I was trying to get rid of people. Let's see. I believe song lyrics are still part of the syllabus in general, in terms of lit as well, because they use it in song lyrics and poetry are kind of interrelated. a lot of times. Okay, when analyzing infographics, in the case that they include a lot of things, is it recommended that we go over the main focuses of the infographic and nitpick the parts of the infographic that support it more than others? Absolutely. So things like infographics, and in general in paper ones, there will be a lot of features and a lot of conventions being used, but you can never, ever talk about every single thing that was included in the in your text. It's not possible. You don't have the time for that. You don't have the word count or the ability to write that much. Your essay is not meant to be that long. That's not what they're asking of you. You want to prioritize the sections that best support the point that you're trying to make. So if you're talking about a specific purpose of the infographic, you want to pick out the specific conventions and specific sections that are relevant to the purpose that you're talking about and not about everything else. Okay, when there's speech bubbles in infographics or comics, what's the name of the speech bubbles that are exclamatory shouting? I don't remember. I might have that written down. I'll check in a second after I read that. For infographic, how would markers grade us aside from rubric? In general, any marking is done by the rubric. There's no, the difference in marking doesn't come from what they're marking. The essay will be marked as an essay, regardless of what text type you're dealing with. But in general, I would say you should try to include genre-specific terminology, which is part of the rubric. Genre-specific terminology is where the text type comes in, because it's different for all of them. What structure is best for the paper one structure? Chronological infographic. I don't know what you mean. So an infographic can be of 5 different structure types, and you have to try to find which of those 5 best applies to the infographic that's been given to you. So the 5 are, like I said, chronological, problem solution, cause and effect, comparative, and there was one more that I've forgotten, but it's on my slide, so I will go back. Hierarchical. Those are the 5 that are the types of structures, and you want to pick the one that best applies to your infographic. Because multiple can apply, but you want the one that applies the best. There we go. Okay, let me search up this speech bubble thing, because I've forgotten what it is. Exclamatory are called. You can just say exclamatory speech bubbles or speech, honestly. Just say exclamatory speech bubbles. Okay, are there more questions? I'm going to wait for a couple minutes because there's a lot of people typing. Okay. Oh my god, okay, there was more. I didn't realize. Sorry, I didn't scroll. I did not scroll. Okay, let me read. Yes, it's being recorded. Yes, I will share the recording. Yes, I will also share the slides for anyone who's just joining for some reason. Okay, sorry. I did not read the rest of your question card, so I'm going to read it now. I realized I have not been reading anything below that for some reason. Anyway, part 1 of the infographic, part 2 of the infographic, or part color or language and text. So in general, this is not just infographics, this is cartoons and things like that. I prefer if you don't let the actual text lead you down the essay. I would prefer if you talk about things that you want to talk about and then pick out sections of the text that are relevant. Because when you go down, I talked about this in my paper 1 feedback as well, when I put it in the when I gave general feedback to everyone. You want to let either your themes or your conventions that you want to talk about drive your essay, not the text type. Because you don't want to be like, okay, in panel 1 they do this, in panel 2 they do this, in panel 3 they do this, because it just becomes very list-like, which you want to avoid because you're trying to write a good essay. In the essay structure, I would recommend you pick either a conventional, a convention text type, a convention essay or a theme essay, which are the two types of essays that you can do. And then you can pick which one you want to do, and then let that drive what organizes your paragraph and not the sections of your essays. Okay. These conventions are features present in the infographic that should be talked about if they ask about it. Yes. If it's an infographic, you want to talk about at least like 5 of these in general. Analyze the structure of the infographic apart from the order in which information is presented or like actual physical structures. Are there any other aspects we can pick out? Okay, so in terms of comparative, there's always going to be 2 things that are being discussed and they're going to be compared and contrasted. So that's a comparative, it's down immediately. Chronological, if the infographic is usually going through a timeline of something. For problem and solution, there's always going to be a like issue as the title usually, and then it's going to give what we can do as the rest of the information. For cause and effect, the cause is going to be the title, and then they're going to talk about the effects in the infographic. For hierarchical, obviously it's just the structure. I wouldn't call it emanata because emanata is more for cartoon stuff. I would just say exclamatory speech bubble. Just say exclamatory. Icons, charts, etc. They help simplify complex messages, helps audience easier to digest info. How can I relate this back to my conceptual claim global issue? I mean, in general, anything that helps the audience to easily digest the information is good. So you can say something like, although the topic that this infographic is dealing with is really serious and really complicated, the icons and charts help to break down this complex information into simpler, easy to understand chunks, which therefore improve the understanding of the reader, and therefore they are more likely to take action on what the infographic wants to do. Speech bubbles, yes, you can do under visual. Yeah, you can just say scream bubble, you can say exclamatory speech bubble, I can't lie. Do I need to mention the structure of the infographic in my intro? You don't have to, but you can. If you know it, then you should probably just say it in the intro and then keep going. How many text types am I going to cover? I don't even know. I don't remember. Okay. Are we good to move on to websites? How lenient is IB with terminologies for English? Fair, like, I don't know about lenient, but the thing is you want to include terminologies because of criteria A, I think. No, criteria D, language, where it says uses accurate terminology or something like that. Genre-specific terminology, things like that. Will I cover Instagram posts? I don't have a slide on it, I don't think, but I can talk about them in general after, if people want to do that. Oh, sorry, I haven't seen... some questions I've lost in the middle of people asking for recordings. How many should we focus on? How many main things in the infographic? There's no good number. Like, I can never be like, you should talk about 5 things. But it should be everything that is relevant. Like, not everything that's relevant, but everything that best makes your point. I would recommend there's, for example, 6 things you talk about, and you do 3 paragraphs, and each paragraph is dealing with 2 things. So in my head, I organize this as there's 6 conventions that you're talking about. 3 are visual, 3 are textual, and you want to do 1 paragraph each on 1 textual, 1 visual, and then it's 3 paragraphs and do it like that. But like, that's not a perfect formula because it's not going to work for every single person and it's not going to work for every single text. But that's roughly where I would keep my brain at. More than 6 is kind of ridiculous because I mean this in like larger context. I don't mean this in like very specific literary devices because that can be endless. Like, it depends how much you're analyzing. But in terms of conventions, I wouldn't focus on more than 6. If an exclamation point is said after something, can you argue it's a technique of hyperbole? I'm hesitant to say it's a hyperbole immediately because a hyperbole means that it's being exaggerated. Just because an exclamation point is used doesn't mean it's being exaggerated from what it actually is. It's just being communicated more excitedly. It's like it's jumping at you kind of thing. More emphasis. That's a good word. I like that. More emphasis. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. What? Okay, anyway. So, we're going to talk about websites now. I think most people are done with questions. If you still have questions, you can put them in chat and I'll take a look anyway. Is put after a derogatory term. What? Is this a specific example? Okay, the exclamation point is not what determines whether or not something is hyperbolic. The hyperbole comes in terms of language use, not in terms of exclamation. You can be hyperbolic without an exclamation point. It's like, yes, okay. That's the hyperbole. Like, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. No, you're not actually going to eat the entire horse. Okay. So websites. I'm just going straight into conventions with this one. Websites, though, are really common even if they give you article as a text type, because sometimes it'll be a web page instead of like a print article, which is way less common now. So it's usually web page articles. So you still want to analyze some of the website conventions and not just the literary stuff in the actual article. So, in the website, there is the navigation menu, which is basically where there's a series of labels that you can pick out which page you want to go to different web pages of the website. There's the header, which is the top section that has usually the logo, the branding, the navigation hierarchy, things like that. There's the banner, which will usually have some kind of advertising panel, or it'll be the main thing that the website is talking about. There will be, hyperlinks I'm not talking about yet. Hyperlinks is after. Give me a second. I'm literally going through it. What was I saying? Yes, footer. That's at the end. It usually has more information about whatever the website is, like who the website is about, what the website is about, contact information, site map, things like that. And the reason that's included is usability and readability, because sometimes people will want more information and the site map will just help them sort through all of that out. And then there's the sidebar. The sidebar exists, which is basically section off to the side of the website's primary content area that will sometimes have the menu. Other times it will have other posts, quote unquote posts, that the same website has done, things like that. There is call to action buttons. So these will be clickable buttons that allow the user to interact with the website and participate. So sometimes it'll be signing up to a newsletter, it will be writing a comment, it will be a donate button, for example, things like that. It often requires the the user or the reader to enter personal information and details. There's hyperlinks, obviously. Either it will take it to content on another website or on the same website, another web page. The hyperlink also exists at the top of a web page in general, things like that. There's the logo, which represents the website brand, and this is very important if you're talking about logos, which, I mean, logos type thing, where you're basically, because some websites / companies / brands will have very recognizable logos and therefore contributes to their logical reasoning, but also ethos, kind of, because if it's a well-known and credible website brand, then you're more likely to believe whatever is on the website. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. I meant to say logo and ethos, not logo and logos. Yeah, okay. Next is image and icons. Again, similar to the infographic, where there's visual content that is carefully chosen in order to elicit a certain response. So sometimes for example, if it's a news website, they will have some very graphic or very specific images included that either elicit an emotional response or some kind of response from the reader, and they're very carefully chosen usually. It won't be as common in websites in general. And then there is the font. So are they using serifs or sans serif? What's the size of the font? What's the weight of the font? So bolded, things like that. What's the color? What does it look like? In terms of readability, how is it? Is it capitalized? Is it things like that? All typography, basically, which all has an impact on how the reader interacts with the content. Okay, questions. I like how we've dwindled in numbers. We've gone from 50 to 34. But yeah, questions? Logo and logos, but then you can confuse yourself if you mean logos plural, logos recording. That does happen. Certain examples, certain fonts give out. Okay, in general, if you're using a serif font, it's usually for large pieces of text because it improves readability. If you're using a sans serif font, it's usually to stand out. If it's a font, like a completely different font that you've never seen, that's like out of like really bolded, things like that, it draws attention, which is usually used for titles, things like that. If serifs and things like that are called fonts. That's just the font, and then bold, italicized, and underlined is font formatting. So Times New Roman was used in the Times newspaper because of its readability, because it was really easy to track small, like big chunks of text in small sized fonts, because of the serifs. Cursive is its own thing. So if it's cursive, it's a whole other beast, basically. I don't think it will get put together with serifs. Are there any textual conventions that are specific common for websites? In terms of textual conventions, there's the heading, the title. There's it's mostly visual, if I'm being honest. It's less like, in terms of conventions, it's mostly visual. The textual things are usually literary devices that are used in the website in general. Okay. How do we organize our analysis on websites? Where do you suggest we start? Is it the same with infographics? One paragraph for textual and the other for visual. Okay, I never said do one paragraph for textual and one paragraph for visual. I do not like doing that. I usually go, you have to try to synthesize. I don't like doing, here's a textual paragraph, here's a visual paragraph, here's my essay. That is not what I would recommend you do. I would say you synthesize as much as possible. So your one paragraph is going to be, this is a textual element, this is a visual element, and then this is how they interplay to show this purpose. Second is, this is a textual element, this is a visual element, this is how they synthesize to form this other purpose. I would never go one visual, one textual to begin with. In websites, it's usually, there will be a lot of talking about the actual content of the website. You're going to talk about the content of the website more than you're going to talk about the structure, but I would recommend you talk about structure as one out of like 3 or 4 of your points. It should be included somewhere in general, is what I would say. Okay. I did give a TEDx talk once in my life. I have before. Not a TED talk, a TEDx talk. Okay. image, layout, and language. And image, you dissected the font of the slogan, and I talked about the language. Really to combine them. Should I have? Okay, if you're going to divide it into image, layout, and language, well, in general, I wouldn't do that. But if you do a, like, what's it called? Yeah, so it's hard to say, because in general, I would not approach it like that, because doing image, layout, and language, like, concises how much you can talk about things, which is always why I prefer theme-based essays over convention-based essays. Because what theme-based essays allow you to do is you're talking about one sub-theme or a sub-purpose of the entire text as a whole, and then you can bring in as many conventions, as many literary devices as you want to support that one sub-theme. That's why I prefer convention-based essays, not convention, sorry. That's why I prefer theme-based essays over convention-based essays, if that makes sense. But that's a personal choice. You can still write a good convention-based essay. That is not a, like, it's not gonna deter you from a 7. I just find it's easier to write, personally. Because you want to try to synthesize both visual and textual elements. You don't want to talk about them as separately as you did, probably. Okay, people are typing, so I'm going to assume there's questions. What's a good structure to use? I literally just said, I prefer a theme-based structure, where you're basically, I call it theme-based, but it can also be purpose-based, where so in your thesis, you're going to say the overarching purpose of in your intro / your thesis, you're going to say the overarching purpose of the text. And then in your essay, for example, if you're writing a 3-paragraph essay, the first paragraph will be one sub-purpose or sub-theme of that same purpose. Another would be another, the third would be another, and then the fourth is... not the fourth, and then there's a conclusion, things like that. You can still do a device-based essay again. I just personally really liked theme-based essays because I felt like I could write a lot more in my theme-based essays than I did trying to do device-based essays. But that's a trial and error, which is why you should probably practice and see which you do better. In terms of connecting and the thesis, you can still talk about, like, major techniques, right? So you can still say things like, for example, if you say structure, what's it called? I'm trying to think. I think it's okay if you write a thesis based on just theme-based points, as long as you talk about the actual visual text techniques in your essay. It's okay. But, yeah, so, like, if I would write a thesis for a theme-based essay, I would say something like, the author uses both visual and textual elements to portray blank, blank, and blank. And then my 3 paragraphs will be the 3 blanks. And then I'm going to talk about both visual and textual elements in that. You don't have to actually explicitly mention the conventions in your thesis if you're writing a theme-based essay, personally speaking. Elements that are being projected from top to bottom chronologically as to show the flow of the text type. Again, I've said this before, but I prefer not going in terms of the chronological structure of the actual text, because it confines you to be like, okay, in this section they talk about this, in this section they talk about this, in this section they talk about this type thing. If you if you divide it a bit more, where you're basically talking about a specific convention, and then you say, okay, it's used here, here, and here, that shows that the convention that you've picked out is actually being used by the author as a specific authorial choice and not just something that exists as a result of writing the actual text. The difference is what you base your essay around. So, for example, if I was writing a theme-based essay on... Let me think about this. Let's say, for example, the ozone example. So I could say something like the author / organization uses textual, visual, and rhetorical devices in order to explain the social, cultural, and economic impacts of the ozone depletion, things like that. So my 3 would be, I'm talking about the social impacts, and then I'm talking about, again, this is very uncommon because you will never get the social, cultural, and economic impact in an actual essay, but you can do any like sub-themes, sub-purposes that you can gather from the infographic. But it could be, for example, that you're talking about... Yeah, basically, that's what I mean by theme-based essay structure. It's where you're talking about one specific sub-purpose, sub-theme, and then you're talking about multiple techniques or 2 techniques, and then how it interplays to convey that specific theme. That's a really good... I like this. I agree. Okay, there was so many questions. I just skipped. The PowerPoint is mine. I'll put it up later. Someone asked that. If the prompt asks for interplay of text and image, is it fine to write a thesis statement purely on theme-based? I answer that. Yes, I think so. Okay. When we're doing it on theme-based essay, should we know how much authorial choices are too much if we're also using a chain of authorial choices? I think, in general, each of your paragraphs should not have, like, too much just analysis. Like, you want to involve interpretation as well. So you want to be able to write a normal sized paragraph, but you're discussing authorial choices and analyzing them, and then discussing the impact it has on the audience and how it achieves the purpose that you're talking about. That's the 4 things that you need to include in your specific, like, body paragraph. Utilize the reading time to determine some themes you can pick out the text and then which elements are connected to it. Yes, I agree. Themes can be, so themes can be general themes as well, but themes can also be sub-purposes or purposes of the text. It depends on what the text is like, because that can change based on what the text is like. Because sometimes some texts will have very obvious themes rather than purposes, and some will have multiple purposes, so you can talk about 3 different purposes, basically. Okay, P1 in general. Yeah, so the hook thing is, me personally, if... I like how Season answered that. A hook is nice if you can, if it's not too, like, cliched, if it's not too, quote-unquote, cringy. As long as it's, like, a kind of formal hook, it's okay. But if it takes you longer, then you don't have to include a hook at all. You can just start with the text is a blank by blank and give the context first, and then start going into it. Okay, more questions? The text presented is dash, typically used for dash. In this case, dash is promoting dash. Yes, that works. Is a hook just a reflection of the question, like in paper 2? If the question was about how the author uses time in their works, would the hook just be a brief explanation of how authors use time? Yes, more or less. I mean, in paper 2s are easier to write hooks on because there's actual, like, specific keywords / themes that are given in the question itself that you can break down in your intro. So things like, for example, which is why I say paper 1 hooks are bad. I don't write a paper 1 hook. I've never written a hook in my paper 1s ever in my life. I don't think, because I just couldn't, because I didn't have enough time to think of a proper hook. If your teacher suggests that you do a hook, and you can do a hook, go for it. I can't. I can't write a hook to save my life for paper 1. If you can do it, good for you. If you can't do it, it's okay if you don't have one. But yes, okay. Are we good? Are there more questions? Yeah, it's not like, generally, if you can't come up with it, like if you start writing and you don't have a hook, just don't write a hook. Because usually you'll come up with a hook as you're writing, and if you can't come up with one, you don't need one. Okay, are there more questions rather than explanations? Are there questions? No questions. Yes, questions. Should you have merged on the points? So the way I answer that, I already answered that, but basically I wouldn't have divided into image, layout, and language, because you should more or less talk about textual and visual elements together. So when you divide it like that, you're just kind of restricting yourself to talking only about that specific convention in that specific paragraph. So in my opinion, yes, you should have merged them. Should we focus more on author intention over effects? You should focus more on effects over author intention, in my opinion. You should say that this is an authorial choice and this is how it affects the reader. Actually, focus on both pretty much equally. You want to say that this is an authorial choice, this is what it results in the real world, this is how it impacts the reader or audience or whoever, user, if it's a website, things like that. Okay, this is so much... all of these questions are non-text type related. I'm going to move on for now. If you have questions that are not text type related, write them down somewhere else, and then I will take them at the end, because otherwise I'm not going to get through text types today. And I really want to go over text types. Yes, I'm going to go over comics, but I really want to go through this quicker. So if you have questions / explanations for things, I would recommend you keep that for, like, write them down and keep it for later, so I can ensure that I'm focusing on the text types for now. Okay, next is speech. There is 7 things that we're going to talk about. There's ethos, pathos, logos. Everyone knows what ethos, pathos, logos is. I will do a reping when I start literature. So if you want to leave, you can, and then I will do a ping and then say I'm starting literature now, and then you can come and join, if that's helpful. Because LangLit is long, like genuinely really long. So if you want to leave, you can leave, and then I will ping again, and then you can come back, if that helps. Anyway, yes, I can ping you when you do when I do comics as well. Yeah, so everyone knows what ethos, pathos, logos is. I probably shouldn't have to explain this too much, but ethos is credibility and trustworthiness. Pathos is evoking emotional responses, and logos is logical argument. I'm not going to expand more on that. If you want to read the slide, feel free, but that's basically all I'm going to say about that. Everyone knows what it is. I don't have to expand more on that. Okay, modality. So there's words. Modality is basically word choice, where you're using words like must, might, should, have to, and things like that are basically compelling the audience to do what the speech is asking you to do. And one second, I'm getting a text. Why am I getting a text? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so things like that are basically trying to appeal to the audience, right? It's directly being like, yes, you must do this, you should do this, you have to do this. And it determines the degree of certainty, basically. So if you say, we might do this, and you say, you must do this, it changes emphasis, basically. And yeah, the strength of feeling in the language of a speaker. Next is structural moves, and there's two types of structural moves. There's the whole speech structural moves, and then there's sentence level structural moves. So the first one is as a whole speech. So how does it begin? Did they deliver an anecdote, a joke? Did they try to relate to the audience in some way? Did the speaker try to shock you? Was there a hook? Was there a provocative fact? Was there something like a statistic, things like that? How did they structure their argument? How are they ending their speech? Are they saying something like, if you don't remember anything from this essay, remember this? Things like that. Like, that's very specific structural moves that speakers, speechwriters will make in order to capture the attention of the audience in very specific ways. Structural moves on the sentence level is if it's shorter, punchier sentences in order to say like key points, things like that. If there's command terms, when you call the listener to action, is there techniques like antithesis, which is the main claim toward the end of the speech. Again, like I said, if you don't take anything away from this entire speech, take away this. That's a like really good technique that a lot of speakers use, because they're like, yeah, I just yapped for like 5 minutes. Here's what you really need to know from this. And you often remember that in general. There's also like things like, for example, I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. He said, I have a dream. And that's like the first sentence of his entire speech, which like is like, it brings you in really immediately. It's a short sentence. It's 4 words. I have a dream. So things like that. Like, it's very intentionally structured in that way because it's going to capture your attention immediately. Yeah. And then there's language moves, which is where you consider figurative language and components or rhetoric, connotation, denotation, euphemism, hyperbole, tone, mood, atmosphere, word choice, diction, things like that. Again, isolate phrases, deconstruct them, show how they shape meaning. It's the same as any other textual element where you want to talk about how the language is working, how the language achieves the purpose that you want it to achieve. Okay, questions on speeches? Or are we good to move? Are speeches similar to opinion articles? Yes and no. Opinion articles will have less of an argument. They're more just telling you their opinion. Speeches will usually try to convince you that what they're saying is exactly right and what they're saying is what you should also believe. They're a lot more persuasive than opinion articles. Even though opinion articles are meant to be kind of persuasive because they're trying to tell you their opinion, things like that. Oh, I was saying, no. Okay, I didn't say, I said that's a really good example of what speakers in speeches do. It's like they always do if you take only one thing away, if you don't remember anything from my speech, if you take only one thing away from this entire speech, it's this. Like, things like that is a sentence structure that they use a lot because it helps. Structure of analysis. When the texts are not multimodal, how do you suggest we change our analysis structure? When it's not multimodal, which, I mean, the IB tries to keep it multimodal anyway, but when it's not multimodal, you want to talk about how it still can invoke more than a single response from the person. Like, it would, like, you want to talk about how sometimes, for example, if they use imagery or like narrative or things like that, how that directly reflects what the, hold on, my thing is glitching, what the author's, like, how the author affects the reader directly, or the listener directly in this case, not reader. Okay, what technique would that be? I think it's called antithesis, but let me double check. No, that's not antithesis. I forgot what it's called. Hold on. I would just call it like a rhetorical device that concises the key takeaway. I don't think there's an exact word for what it's called. There might be, but I haven't done enough research to tell you exactly what it's called. But you could just say something like a rhetorical device that emphasizes the key takeaway from the speech. One second, sorry. If you don't know the name of a technique in an exam, is it okay to guess it like that? Yeah, pretty much. I don't think you'll get marked down for it. It's better to guess than, well, in terms of guess, you don't want to guess like completely out of pocket, but you can say, like, you can just say it's a rhetorical device, because a lot of times it is a rhetorical device, because speeches are full of rhetorical devices, things like that. Wait, I'm gonna turn off slow mode because I feel like it's making it a lot difficult for you guys now, because there's fewer trolls in chat right now, so I'm gonna turn it off for the sake of, like, okay, more questions? No, I'm not saying, okay, no, you should know exactly what the device is. I'm not saying that. If you don't, if you end up in an exam situation where you don't know what it is, then what choice do you have? Is what I'm saying. Definitely try to know as many devices as you can, but like, you want to maximize, yeah, well, cry is an option, but like, you want to try to say something at least. You're not just going to say a device. Yeah, I think as long as you can say I think as long as you explain what the consequence of that device being used is, whether or not you say the exact device becomes kind of redundant at that point. So if you're saying like it persuades the audience to take action, things like that, like more specific than that, but like if you say things like that, I think it's okay. Again, this is not to say don't know your conventions. Try to know your conventions as well as possible. But if you end up in an exam situation where you don't remember the convention and you're stuck, then just try to describe it as best as possible and explain what the result or what the effect of it is. And why that would be a choice. Well, yes. Someone asked this in the bio session. What do you do if you want to cry in an exam situation? And I would say just like wait. Just take 2 minutes, breathe, and just cry and do whatever, and then keep going. Because don't try to bottle it in while you're in an exam situation. If you need to cry, just cry. No one's gonna judge you, because it's very common, trust me. No one's gonna judge you if you do that. It happens. I'm not there, bro. I'm busy writing my exams. Hydrate yourself with your tears is crazy. Okay. Are we good with speech, guys? See, I love when chat is wholesome and funny and not being trolls. Gotta love it. I love it. Okay. Great. Lovely comics. Let me ping the kids. Was this wholesome? Kind of. It's sad, but like, still wholesome. Doing comics right now. Our suffering brings us joy. No, guys, I didn't say that. I did not say that. It's kind of wholesome because we're talking about like being there for each other, kind of, theoretically speaking. Anyway, okay, I'm gonna wait for a couple seconds for people to join. Me yelling happens very infrequently, and it only happens when I'm doing freaking sessions. Not y'all smacking on popcorn, bro. The fuck. Okay. I think people joined. I don't know if people joined. Did people join? Are people who wanted to be here? No. I don't know. I feel like I should put the ping in the actual chat because people don't see this chat very often. Okay, give me a second. Yes, keep talking about freaking tears and popcorn for some reason. Who the fuck? Okay. Will you also do a session on paper 2? I've not answered this already, but I might. When is your exam? When is your English exam? In how many days? Don't say, yeah. Or like, what date is it? The 8th. Oh, you've got time. You're fine, guys. You got time. Okay. Time is a rare commodity. This is true. Guys, I was joking. I'm joking. Okay, it's on the 8th. So would people like, okay, this is out of context, but would people like to do a paper 2 on next Saturday? A paper 2 practice mock thing. I don't know if I'll be able to grade them the best, but we can do one on May 3rd, yes. Okay, cool. I'm gonna have to find a paper 2 mock, but we can do that. Sure. Okay, we will do that. Did they put psychology and English on the same day? They're insane, bro. They're insane. The IBs, it's fucking insane. They're insane. They're actually insane. Okay. Fuck. Okay. Sorry, guys. I haven't like properly thought about the exam schedule this year. But oh my lord. Double G and double bio is diabolical, bro. Haters, literal haters. They're actual haters, bro. Oh my god. That's insane. That's crazy. It's actually crazy. Okay, well. R.I.P. guys. I'm praying for your success in these exams. Trust me. I'm praying for your success every day. Okay. Let's calm down. Chat, let's calm down. Praying for your everyday trust. Because the IB literally is like hating. Okay, chat. Let's chill. Let's talk about comics. I don't want to slow-mo chat because I know chat is good. Let's talk about comics. Yeah. Okay, so comics. We're going to talk about composition, narrative, objects and symbols, color, and language. Those are the 5 things we're going to talk about. There is also an acronym for this. I borrowed. I will be slow, sorry. I will calm down. I've just been just like fully going. Not stealing. I borrowed some of this from IB English guys. So they had an acronym called, I don't even know what it's called. I forgot. Hold on, let me find this. They had an acronym. I don't know what it's called again. Comics. Where's comics? 1 second. I will find what this acronym was. For your sakes. Although I don't think I ever remembered anything with an acronym in my life. But you know, I'm trying to be helpful. Comic. Coral needs our care and love. I'm not kidnapping the acronym. I did not put the thing in. Yes, corals need our care and love. Where C is composition, N is narrative, O is objects, C is color, and L is language. If you care. There's no T. It's CANOCL. Also known as corals need our care and love. Okay, I'm going to say it. I also stole the Aunt Vera one. Okay, I'm going to say it. Okay, calm down, guys. I don't want to slow-mo chat, so let's calm down and chat. It's CNOCL, or corals need our care and love, which is composition, narrative, objects/props, colors, and language. Those are the 5 conventions of comics. So, composition. Look at the composition. Consider the appearance of pages, individual panels. How are the panels structured? You want me to repeat again? Okay, so there's CNOCL, which is composition for C, narrative for N, object / I don't know what I have it written up, symbols, objects or symbols as O, colors as the next C, and language as the last L. I will write it in chat for... Yes, okay, someone wrote it in chat, never mind. That's good. Great, thanks guys. Composition, narrative, objects / props / symbols, colors, and language. CNOCL, or corals need our care and love, or cake never opens cake love. I don't, that's not even okay, whatever. Okay. Composition. So you want to look at the composition of the comic. You want to look at the appearance of the pages as a whole. You want to look at the structure of... yes, you can do corals need our constant love. That's cute also. Yes, all you guys spelling colors as COLORS is actually insane behavior. That's crazy. That's crazy. But yeah, corals need our care and love, or corals need our constant love, whatever is easier for you to remember. Because I think corals need our constant love actually fits CNOCL better than the and love, because the A is unnecessary there. Anyway, whatever acronym helps you remember it. If you don't need an acronym, just remember it however you best remember things. Okay, I've said this part. Oh yes, A can be audience. That is true. If you want to do that, you can do that. That is true. Okay, composition. You want to look at the composition of the pages. You want to look at panel structure. You want to look at whether there's big panels, small panels, open panels, splash panels, things like that. Just different types of panels, basically. You want to look at paneling. Paneling is a big thing. Please look at paneling when you're dealing with comics. Elements to elements to consider, to include: foreground, background, left, right, angle, distance, balance, graphic weight, vectors, and lines, all part of the freaking, what's it called? Yes, list of panels. There is closed panels, open panels, splash panels. There's Dutch panels. I'm writing them down. Hold on. Panels. There is, I'm trying to think, small panels, big panels. That one's obvious. Big panels, long panels, things like that. Basically, that's all the ones I can remember off the top of my head. If I'm missing any, feel free to add onto what I've said. Those are different types of panels. Things to, well, it can also be insert, yes, it basically is insert adjective here, but you do want to include, closed, open, and splash are really specific to things like that. Transitions for panels, I will talk about transitions in a second. Okay, elements to consider to include: foreground, background, left, right. Basically look at what's in the front, what's at the back, what's on the left side, what's on the right side of each panel, or the page in general. Look at distance between panels, distance spatially and temporally. Okay, I will explain them in a second after I talk about this. Balance, so whether people are very symmetrically there, whether people are non-symmetrical, how is it balanced? Graphic weight, big one. You always want to talk about graphic weight when you're talking about comics and graphic novels and things like that, because it basically indicates, because sometimes it will be monochromatic comic strips where there's no color, so the graphic weight indicates some of the color contrast and things like that. Yes, there will be a recording. Yes, there will be slides. They will all be put in the M25 English LangLit channel. If you don't have access to that channel, please get the role from Revision Join. Lovely. Yes, so I will... My mental sanity is non-existent. Revision Join. And M25 English LangLit. Okay. Those are the two channels. The top one you can get the roles from. The second one you should have access to once you get the roles. Lovely. It basically is a commercial at this point. It's just in my head constantly. I'm just like, yes, I'm recording. Yes, the recording will be put up. Yes, the slides will be put up. Every single time. And then the M25 English LangLit and Revision Join. Literally, like, constantly in my head. Anyway. Yeah, so different types of panels. Someone wanted me to explain what they are. So closed panels are normal square panels. Usually they're closed in a box. There are open panels, which will sometimes just be like sandwiched between two closed panels where there's no boundaries of the actual panels, and it'll be an open panel. Splash panels, yes, borderless panels essentially is what an open panel is. Splash panels is if the entire page is the quote-unquote panel, where it's like not exactly a comic anymore, it's just a page of art at that point, where it's things are still happening, but it's borderless. It's, well, sometimes it can be bordered, but basically it takes up the entire page. That's what a splash panel does. Dutch panels are when specifically when they are like diagonally split. Let me find an example of a Dutch panel, actually, because that will probably be easier. Guys, I'm scrolling into my, what's it called? Law school notes while I'm trying to research this thing. Okay. It's crazy. Where is I'm trying to find that one, like, what's it called? Okay, no. Slanted. They're basically slanted panels, but I'm trying to... Slanted. Okay, here we go. Found a random... There we go. Where in the world? Am I doing an LLB? Yes, I'm doing an LLB. The panel is big. I like that. There's a diagonal there and a trapezium now. Yes. An LLB is just a Bachelor of Laws because I'm doing an undergraduate law degree currently. Anyway. Yeah, so that's what a... Have any of these learnings from English language been... Well, in terms of analyzing, yes. I'm good at breaking down big chunks of text into more understandable bits. So, yes, ish. Yeah, so that's what a Dutch panel looks like, essentially, where it's like slanted. It's not in the normal square format. Because it's basically a play on the quote-unquote Dutch angle, where Dutch angles are slanted pictures, like in photographs, Dutch angles are slanted pictures that basically quote-unquote offset the reader, where you're kind of like making it weird for them because they're like, oh, I have to like tilt to see something, things like that. I mean, that's what my teacher told me anyway. If that's not an official thing, I apologize, but like my English teacher was a LangLit examiner at one point, so I believe her. Yeah, okay, so that's everything to do with compositions. Wait, let me see whether... Do I have... No, I don't. Okay. In composition, there is also transitions. Now, transitions, I think, are really, really good, like examples, a really good convention to talk about because they communicate a lot. Transitions are very specific to comics, in the sense that, like, the gutters, basically do all the transitioning for us in our minds. And you'll see all types of like transitions. So there is a moment-to-moment transition. There's scene-to-scene transition. There is... I've forgotten all the different types now. I have it written down. Give me a second. Moment to moment, action to action, subject to subject, scene to scene, aspect to aspect, and that's it, basically. Those are the main ones anyway. And then there's non sequitur. So I love everyone transcribing what I'm saying. So moment to moment is when you're going from one moment to another in a singular scene. You're following the same characters. It's just going from one moment to another. Scene to scene is when you're going from one scene to another. That it could be the same characters. It could be different characters. You're just going from one location to another. It could even be in the same location, but it could be... what's it called? Different characters. It could be a different interaction altogether. Basically, you're changing the interaction that was happening into another interaction. Action to action is where it's going, well, from to not sound weird, from one action to another, where it's essentially like very finely sliced moment to moment, where it's like every single movement is being tracked. And it's usually only used in like action graphic novels, or like if something like really like stressful is happening, things like that. Yeah, basically like that. That's an action to action transition for sure. From the top to the bottom is like it's going, well, from the left to the right, it's going between actions. Yeah, thinly sliced together. And then there's subject to subject, so it's following from, if it's following one specific character, then it'll switch to another subject in the same scene, where like things like this. Let me find this. Let me put this image in chat. Like, this is a really good example of a subject to subject. Like, it's in the same scene, there's two people interacting, but it's just switching perspective to show change the subject of the panel. And then there is scene to scene. I already explained that one, actually. No. there is aspect to aspect, which is basically like changing the point of view but in the same context. So you're going basically you're jumping around a scene, so you're changing the quote unquote aspect ratio, I guess you can call it, and you're going from, for example, if I take like whatever this context is, the restaurant, for example, they're sitting in a restaurant, so you go from a panel of the restaurant to a panel of a panel of outside the restaurant to a panel of inside the restaurant to a panel of the kitchen to a panel of something else. Like, it's different aspects of the same interaction in different quote unquote points of view. I don't want to say points of view, but like, if that makes sense. Yeah, it wanders the eyes of the reader away from just the subjects of the comics. It will go more wider. I think that's only 3 fingers. Maybe that's only 3 fingers. Change in scenery. Yes, kind of. Okay, and then non sequitur, I can't even say it, bro, is very uncommon, but they're generally like not completely unrelated panels. Like there's like one from somewhere and one from somewhere else and one from completely, like 3 panels from 3 different completely what am I saying? 3 completely different places or contexts or people or subjects or whatever, but it's like it seems completely unrelated, and that's why it's called non sequitur, because it doesn't fall into sex. Sorry guys, my brain is a little bit slow sometimes. Thank you, Lori. That's amazing from you. Gotta love that. I will put that into my, I think it's right. Okay, one moment to another moment, one location to another location, change of interaction. One action to other action, think tiny moment to moment, often used in action comics. Yes. Subject to subject, one character to another character in the same scene. Yes. Aspect to aspect, POV change in the same context, a metaphorical wandering around. Yep, absolutely. And uncommon seems unrelated. Yep, that's good. I will put that into my slides at the end, just so people who are able to, like, who are gonna use the slides later on have that with them. And I'll do the same for the panels structure as well. In a situation where all the panels are of the same shape but not equally sizes, with sizes varying throughout the progression of the panel, is there any specific convention name? No, it's not one specific convention name, but you want to talk about why they do that. Like, if it's, for example, a panel that takes up the entire width of the page, you can say that they're trying to lengthen the moment. If it's a really short, just a square, it might be that the characters want to move out of that moment. It's an uncomfortable situation for them. They don't want to be there, type thing. Like, you want to try to dive into the subtext rather than deal with just the convention name for it. I don't know if there is a specific convention name. There might be, but you don't have to deal with that. You can just say it's a specific size because of blah 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 to show this effect, blah, things like that. Okay. That's everything in composition. Next is narrative. So narrative is, because comics will always try to tell a story. It goes down a narrative path, and we want to be quote unquote savvy enough to detect all the elements of the narrative. So you have to consider things like context, so temporal and spatial. So you want to talk about where they are in time and where they are in setting. Characters in the panels, so consider their clothing, their size, their hands, feet, face, eyes, gaze, distortion, caricatures. If it's colored, then their race or ethnical or nationality, things like that. There's also, I'm trying to think. in terms of characters, point of view, their interactions with other characters, things like that. All of that is really integral to narrative structure. And then general plot, so what is happening, speech bubbles, thought bubbles, point, like who's the narrator, because in something like Mouse, for example, if someone's done that text, I don't know if you have, that's a graphic novel that's told by the quote-unquote main character of the actual, like, the author is the main character, but he's also the narrator. So he's considered a unreliable narrator, if I'm remembering this correctly. It's been forever, guys, sorry. He's considered an unreliable narrator because he's telling his story with his father from his point of view, and he's telling it himself, and he does certain things within the actual book that actually fit the characterization of him as an unreliable narrator. But in general, you want to talk about who the narrator is, who the overall overarching person is that's talking about the things that are going on in the comic. Okay. And then we've got objects and symbols. This one's fairly simple. There's a lot of symbols in comics sometimes. So things like, for example, if a character is choosing to sit on a backwards chair, for example, while talking to another person, it might be seen as they want to put up a boundary between them and the other character because they don't feel like they can be completely transparent with them. This is a very, like, abstract idea, right? But you want to talk about, yes, it is proxemics, but I just mean like that chair is a symbol for the boundary that he's drawing between them, for example. So like objects like that can be really abstract ideas and really abstract symbols, and it's your job to try to break this down in, like, based on what you can see in your comic. This is more for, like, the symbols thing comes about more in literature, I think, than in LangLit, because the LangLit comics are often more lighthearted than the graphic novels in literature, because the graphic novels in literature will be a panel from, like, a story, and comic strips in LangLit will usually be just that, it's a comic strip. Proxemics is basically how the interactions between characters, so how far apart they're standing, how close they're standing, whether there's things between them, whether someone's standing, someone's sitting down, what is their interaction like, basically, in position. So that proxemics is really important for both drama in terms of paper 2 for LangLit or paper 1 for literature as well. Proxemics is really important in drama, but is also really important in comics, because the point, like, how they're portrayed to sit, stand, be around each other is the proxemics. Okay, there is colors. Colors are really important. Whether there is color or not color as well is really important. So what's the intent of the illustrator there? So are there warmer colors, cool colors? Is there any color symbolism? Where is the graphic weight? Where is the shading? Where is the lack of space? Where is the negative space being used? Are lighter colors or darker colors used for specific purposes? Is it a monochromatic cartoon strip where it's only black and white? Why is it that way? How does it help? Yes, so if it's black and white, there's usually, you talk about graphic weight more often there, because if it's black and white, then anywhere that's dark, quote unquote darker, there's more graphic weight than where it's white. Okay, next is language. You have to remember that comics are not just visual. They are textual as well. They're multimodal texts, which is why they're also a favorite of the IB. So either they're going to give you a comic or a infographic or other visual texts in the visual text part, basically. and you need to determine how the words that are included in the page, whether that be as narrative, whether that be as speech bubbles or dialogue or whatever, is being used, and why that specific language is being used as support to the visual aspect. Again, speech bubbles, thought bubbles, labels, there's captions, words with double meaning, there's irony, there's a lot of irony in comics. Sarcasm is very common. And then you also want to look at word, like diction, word choice, things like that. Okay, that's, I think, everything with the comic. What's next? Brochures. Yeah, I think that's everything with the comic. Are we... questions? If there's questions, ask away. While you do that, I will add a slide to put in if this loads. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, and then we're gonna do comic transitions, and then I will copy this one. Yep, we'll do. Okay, let me just, where is this? Okay, and we will just, actually, I'm just gonna, give me a second, guys. Okay, and then we can pull this up. Panels. Yeah, if there's questions, ask away. I will answer them in a second as soon as I copy in this from the chat. Give me a second. Okay, don't do that. Lovely. I think that's everything. Beautiful, and then you can go further. Well, you can go further down. You can go further up. Okay, lovely. That's crazy. 23 and a half hours is insane. Are comics and literature course? No, so comics and graphic novels are very similar in that sense. So that's why they wanted to know that one. Okay, and let's see. Okay, it's loaded. Perfect. Okay, questions. Yes, questions. Will we talk about those adverts specifically suffering volunteer work? I'm gonna talk about PSAs, which are kind of similar. But yes, we can talk about them in a bit. Are there questions? No questions? Some questions? Purpose of comics, usually just to entertain. Yeah. Usually it's just entertainment. Sometimes there can be more social commentary. Yeah, definitely depends on the comic, because some comics are notorious for giving more social commentary, and some comics are just entertainment. In general, you also want to think about where comic strips were usually kept or like published. Comic strips were usually published in newspapers, and they were more commonly read by people who were actively reading the news. So oftentimes it would be placed together with like really devastating news sometimes, so it could be used as a like contrast to that, where it's more lighthearted. But sometimes the comics can also just be really, like, if something really big is happening in that country, the comics can show the social aspects of that news, for example. So it's very dependent on the comic. Yeah, sometimes they're informative as well. It's very dependent on the comic. Yeah, no worries. Okay, So we're gonna talk about brochures. Don't really want to talk about brochures, but we're gonna talk about it anyway because who knows what the IB is gonna give you in your exam. So there's, I think 8. I don't remember how many I put in. No, there's more than 8. There's 10. Okay. First is powerful images and icons. This is very, very similar to the infographic where brochures will, well, not very, very similar, but similar to the infographic where you want images. But in brochures, it's even more important because you want images to communicate what you're quote unquote advertising, basically, where I say quote unquote a lot, just like ignore me when I do that. It's just a speaking thing. Like for example, brochures will be for a place or to advertise a specific amusement park, for example. So you want to include pictures of the amusement park that you're advertising so that it appeals directly to the audience and they know what they're going in for, things like that. There's, similar to infographics again, titles, headings, subheadings. They're different fonts, sizes. They serve to guide the reader through the text. There will be a title that determines, the title will determine what the main topic / theme of the brochure is, and the headings and subheadings will divide what they want to talk about within the brochure. Use of font, obviously typography. I've said this so many times. Again, typography is really important everywhere because anything that's print media or anything that's even web media has always used typography as a tool to change, to either attract or detract from some things, to bring attention to some things, to highlight some things while hiding some other things. I've just said the same things in 4 different ways, but you know what I mean. So typography is really important. And then short sections or paragraphs. So brochure is to convey key information in a shorter way. So there's not going to be huge paragraphs of things. It will always be concise language. It will be clear. It will be, there will be a lot of bullet points, check boxes, but the purpose is to divide the content and simplify it into digestible, readable, content. Okay. Next is negative space. Why is it doing this? Hold on. This is annoying me right now. Okay, we're good. Yeah, negative space. Brochures need to have a lot of information, but they also need to be easily readable. So if they're crowded, they will overwhelm the reader, and you don't want to do that, which is why the creator always leverages white space, quote unquote white space. It doesn't have to be white, but they just mean negative space, where there's no text, no image, it's just the background, where it serves as framing the text and framing the images and framing the pathway in which the reader will be reading the entire brochure. Yeah, wall of text is always worse than too much negative space. 100%. Wall of text overwhelms. Too much negative space makes it less interesting, but at least any information that you're giving in too much negative space will be captured really easily. Okay, and then pull quotes or slogans. Always mottos, slogans, and things like that. They build eye-ethos. They're rhetorical. They're imperative. It's really eye-catching, basically, because you're gonna remember the slogan. You might not remember a lot of the content of the brochure, but you're more likely to remember a slogan that rhymes or things like that, or a motto or a punchy quote. Like, I could ask all of you what the slogan for McDonald's is, and you'll probably know it, even if you don't think you know it. So yeah, things like that is very valuable. There is symbolism, which is yep, it's that exactly. So like, even if you don't think you know it, you're likely to know the slogans and things like that. Lovely. Yeah, and then there is symbolism. So symbolism is obviously everywhere, but like brochures will very specifically incorporate images and push ideas that are symbolic in order to, because since they're visual text, they're more likely to use visual than textual, so they're going to use the visuals to represent the larger ideas to avoid blocks of text, because it's more of a visual text type. Again, rhetoric, I'm not going to talk about it again, but ethos, pathos, logos, always there, because you're trying to persuade the reader to go or buy or do whatever it says on the brochure. Simplification, you want to try to make it as only essential information. You don't want it to be just a lot of yap, which I'm doing currently, but you know what I mean. Like, you don't want to just, you want to keep it what it is, and that's it. So, for example, the 10 points in the beginning were concise. Hold on, I'm going to go all the way back. But, for example, this was a good list of concise points, and this is something that would be in a brochure. The 30 minutes I took to explain this is not something that would be in a brochure, because you want to try to keep it as concise as possible. There's also a problem solution structure where brochures usually want you to take some kind of action, whether that be to go to the place that they're advertising, to take some kind of action. There's brochures for medicine as well, where they're like brochures for certain vaccines and things like that. So it's encouraging you to take a specific action. So they will usually try to use a simple problem solution approach, where they'll be like, do you have back pain in your 50s? You should take this. Like, it's an advertising technique, but it's basically where they're like, this is your problem and this is your answer for that one problem. Don't target me. Bro, I swear, I'm like, I feel old most days. I'm not even 19 yet and I feel old still. You can hear my bones. Have you or a loved one experienced severe back pain? Take this pain relief medication and it will all go away, basically. Anyone who's watching this recording is going to be so confused. Anyway. I can't believe this is going to be on the internet. Yeah, I finished IB before I turned 18. I turned 18 after I finished the IB. Yeah. I turned 19 this year. And I'm finishing first year of law school. It's crazy. Oh, 6 gang, yeah. Leading questions be like, the rhetoric goes crazy. Truly. Get out of context. There's so many out of context comments, bro. Because the thing is, in the recording, I'm only recording my slides. I'm never recording this screen, so no one knows that I'm talking to chat. So if you think about it, I probably like sound really weird, where I'm just like yapping into the void at this point. I'm crazy. No. It's gonna be take XYZ medicine and your pain will go away. Side effects include nausea, lower back pain, mental fog, brain damage, liver damage, heart failure, death. We're all going insane. Hi, everyone who's recording. Everyone who's watching this recording. Death. Trust. Okay. Does everyone understand what a brochure does? Brochure does. Trust. I was crazy before I started doing the IB. The IB made me more crazy. I was crazy before the IB. After I did IB, I became insane. Okay. Lovely. PSAs. Woohoo. I love PSAs. This chat is very wholesome. That's what I'm saying. I love when there's no trolls in this chat because it just makes me very wholesome. Anyway. PSAs are also known as public service announcements, but they can also just be advertisements for a specific charity, brand, things like that. Those are also public service announcements. Basically, anything you see in... Has a PSA been in an exam before? I don't know, but you should know them anyway, so I'm going to tell you all about them. I don't remember if it's been in an exam before, if I'm being honest. I don't remember any of the exam. I don't even remember my own exam at this point. I can't lie. I don't even know what was in my exam. So please don't leave your pet rats in the cafeteria. This is a public service announcement. Yes. Do not. Who has pet rats, bro? Okay. Surely someone does. I mean, yeah. But like I don't know if anyone in this chat knows has rats. And why are you bringing pet rats to a cafeteria? Is my question. Oh, lovely. To do experiment. That's crazy. Sounding like a real psychopath there. Anyway. I don't mean that. That was a joke. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, PSAs. Let's focus. This one is the Aunt Vera thing. I've forgotten what it's called too. I'm gonna go back 1 second. Please call Aunt Vera to eat vegetarian spring rolls is the thing in the IB English, guys, but you can call it whatever. Okay, so it's please call Aunt Vera to eat. Yes, you can say Vietnamese, or on the thing it says vegetarian spring rolls. I like the vegetarian because I'm vegetarian, so I'm gonna use the vegetarian one. Okay. Spring rolls. Which ChatGPT cow generated image, was it that? I can't, bro. I have blanked out the entirety of my May 2024 papers. What? Wait, you're crocheting. That's so cute. Show me what you make after. I also crochet. It's very fun. I don't remember my paper one, I'm being honest. I don't remember any of my May 2024 papers. Genuinely have no idea what they were. I've forgotten all of them. I'm too busy. Oh, actually, no, you're right. That is. You're so right. You are right. Yes, it was that. Bring back my PTs. Bro, genuinely. I like, every time I'm like, okay, do not advertise. Rule 10. Don't make me mod here, please. Using this as background noises. Oh, wait for the... No, it's okay. You can mention it once, but like, don't over advertise. You can mention it once because we were talking about it. But if it's out of context, don't. Genuinely, I don't want to look at those cows. Those cows are making me act up, bro. I'm like, my brain's like traveling back to being in that exam room trying to write a paper one. Anyway, we were talking about PSAs. I keep getting distracted. This is so bad. Okay, PSAs. The acronym for this is please call Aunt Vera to eat vegetarian spring rolls. Whatever, yeah. So it's producer, context and culture, audience, values, text, emotion and mood, visuals and layout, and subtext. There's 8. First, producer. Who produced the PSA? What organization is behind the message? What do they want the audience to do? Who's who's the company? What's the company? What are they promoting? What are they trying to tell the public about? Context and culture. What's the historical context? How is this reflected in the language and images? What is the PSA saying about a specific culture or society? What is it saying about things? Audience, again, really important regardless of what it is. Who's the audience? Who's the target audience? What's their age, ethnicity, class, profession, interests, country, etc. What words, images, or symbols suggest that this is the target audience? Things like that. Values. So what human needs, fears, or desires are being appealed to? Health, family, security, being loved, security, social acceptance, things like that. So there's often PSAs, for example, can be for let's say, cancer trust fund, where you're taking pictures of young children with cancer to encourage people to donate to the cancer fund. That would be appealing to both health and family, because it would appeal to parents to try to what was I saying? I've actually forgotten what I was saying. Yeah, so they're basically trying to get donations, right? So it would encourage parents to sympathize, because they're like, oh my god, what if this was my child? Things like that. So it's appealing to both health and family in that case. What positive or negative value messages are presented? You should know that already. Okay, and the next is text. So what's the written text? What's the donation? That's not supposed to be. I think it's denotation and connotation of keywords. Yes, it's denotation. I was right. Why does it say donation? Bro, I swear I don't even know half the shit that I wrote in this slideshow. I don't know. I don't even remember when I made this. Denotation. There we go. Of keywords. Lovely. Okay. It's not working. It's not loading. Load. Okay, there we go. Did it work? Is it working? It's not working. It's working. There we go. Okay, good. Yeah, denotation is the literal meaning, and then connotation is anything that's subtext of keywords. What's the interplay between the text and image? Next is emotions and mood. What emotions does it invoke? What's the mood around the thing? What language evokes how does the language that they've used evoke an emotional response? How do images and symbols evoke an emotional response? How do the interplay of textual and visual evoke an emotional response? I'm just saying the same thing again. And then there's visuals and layout. So obviously any visual, colors, images, layout, structure, rule of thirds, things like that all fall under visuals and layout, etc. Yes, but they're dead, so technically they're starving. They're dead. So that doesn't count. Well, you don't know that. What if their poor souls are starving? What if their poor souls are starving? Yes, anyway, I was talking about subtext. Yes, subtext is, again, just subtext. Just subtext. It's just what's the hidden meaning, what's the unstated meaning, what's the underlying meaning, what's the implications that can be drawn. Implications, by the way, was my English teacher's favorite word. Every single time we did any paper 1, paper 2, she was like, what are the implications of the text? So definitely something to discuss. What associations can be made? That's it. Yeah, you're right. Yes, it's all right. I believe. Yes, love it. PSAs. It's PSAs. It's the same. It's please. It's the same thing that I'm talking about, but more concised. Concised? Condensed. Whatever that. Peace Act. Yes, Peace Act is good too. Otherwise, please call Aunt Vera to eat vegetarian spring rolls. Also works. I fact checked. You don't have to fact check. The question was for me, not for you. Okay. Are we good with PSAs? Question? No questions? No questions? Stealing Andrew's phase. Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah, true. You're asking what is a PSA? You want me to give you an example of a PSA? PSA. Public service, and I have to actually say it out loud. Oh my lord, service, and I have to not say it. I mean, type it out. Announcement. Pissing me off, bro. That can be a public service announcement. School shootings. There's like Singapore police force things that people have seen. No, so this session is only paper 1 text types. Next Saturday I'll do a paper 2 session. We don't have enough time to do a paper 2 session today, bro. I barely can get through this. No, it's fair. I can barely get through this, let alone you guys who have to actually remember this information. Yeah, this is a COVID related thing where it was a I think, what is it? It's Victoria State Government, so I don't even know. But yeah, that's a PSA. That's not an ad. Okay. PSA is never to advertise a product. It's to elicit a response between I've been here for 3 hours. I'm shaking. That's crazy. No, so a infographic. What am I saying? A PSA is to get the person to take an action. Advertisement is about buying the product that they're trying to advertise. Great, I love the analysis that's going on in the chat right now. Gotta love it. You're truly showing your paper 1 skills here. What was I saying? Yeah, so a PSA will try to get you to take some kind of action that is not like for instant gratification. It's to help them. It's social advertisements. They're trying to make you help the cause, basically. An advertisement is for you to gain something. A PSA is for the public to gain something, essentially. PSA, you can just say PSA, but I would recommend at least once you say public service announcement. But we'll say it on the paper usually. It says what text type it is on the paper usually. But it's just the public service announcement. Public. Lovely. Okay. Good with PSAs? Questions? More questions? No questions? It does. One letter does make all the difference. But yeah, so basically advertisements are more commercial and PSAs are more social. If that's a good enough. Going once, going twice. I say it more than twice, trust. I just say questions, no questions. incessantly. Yeah, exactly. Yes. The focus can either be on helping someone or selling your product. And selling your product is an advertisement, helping someone is a PSA. Okay, we're good. Croissant. I can speak French. Croissant. Oui, oui. Oui, oui, baguette. Okay. Okay, let's not do that. No. What do you mean no croissant, bro? Cause oui, oui, baguette. You're fine. Thank you. Croissant is snoring. Who's snoring? I'm laughing. That's not snoring. Rude. Oh, snoring. Great. Shouldn't you be asleep? Okay, no, actually, you need to do lit. Sorry, I'm just... Okay. Does anyone care about letter? Should we... Does anyone give a shit about doing a letter? Yes. Oh my god, actually, people care. Lovely. Genuinely, guys, it's very unlikely that they're going to give you a letter, but I will go through it anyway. A letter has... Can we do the full alphabet? I like that joke. That was a good joke. Okay. Yeah, your school just hates you if they asked you a letter in mocks, bro. I've never seen a letter in my life in a paper one. In all the paper ones I've done, I've literally never done it. But I'll just quickly go through it. You want to look at language. So you want to look at the conventions of a letter is the name, date, address, the salutation, the subject or statement of purpose, the overall register. So is it formal? Is it informal? Things like that. A call to action. So what does the letter writer want the receiver to do? So usually it'll be something like looking forward to your response, or please let me know as soon as possible, or RSVP please, things like that. Send in your RSVP as soon as possible, things like that. That's the call to action. The closing can be things like much love or kind regards. Those are two very different closings. Much love is probably to someone informal, someone you know in real life. Kind regards is more like calm. Kind regards is more no, this is a LangLit text. It's not a lit text. This is not a literary text. This is a non-literary text. Literary texts are there's only four main types of literary text. It's either prose, it's prose, fiction or non-fiction, poetry, drama, and graphic novels or whatever it's called. Things like that. This is a LangLit text. If someone ends, I don't think anyone will end a letter with TTYL by, but yeah. Also, I know there's a comp sci session, so if you guys need to leave, feel free. Yeah, because the numbers have decreased because there's a comp sci session going on right now. So people who do comp sci are in comp sci. Yeah, okay, that's a letter. Questions about letters. Ask me questions. I just rattled through that. So if things you actually want to know, you can ask me and I will answer. I swear I never did a letter. My teacher didn't even teach me a letter. Yes, I can go back to the previous slide. There you go. Non-fiction prose, fiction prose, comic, drama / play, song lyrics, and poetry. That's all the lit ones, yes. Indeed. Indeed. Sorry, I'm a Brooklyn Nine-Nine person. Anyway. Mental is better. No, bro. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is so good. Anyway, questions? No questions? Questions? No questions? Some questions? No one. There's no questions. People are talking about shows. Are there questions? No questions? There's no questions. There's actually no questions. Okay. Get the right year role. You can still do revision sessions even if you're not May 2025, brother. Get the right role. Oh my lord. Please get the right role. Fractal, get the right role. You can still get the M25 chat even if you don't have the M25 role. You have access to all the channels as long as you get the right roles from the revision join. Otherwise, you're good. Me, I'm a mod. Get the right year role, I beg. Okay, questions about letters. I don't think there's any, but are there any questions about letters? There's no questions about letters. Okay. Product reviews. Oh my lord. Okay. Product reviews are a possibility in terms of the what's it called? I've forgotten what it's called. In terms of the more textual text type. Yes, the slides will be shared. There's also going to be a recording that I will put up. It'll all be in the M25 English LangLit chat. You're good. So in a product review, credibility is a must because the consumers need a reason to believe the reviewer, where you want to see why the reviewer is a expert in their field and how do they establish that the consumers can trust them. That's important. There's also personal stories and anecdotes where you want oftentimes a reviewer will start off with how they came about the product or how they started using the product or things like that. You're going to look for descriptive languages, other narrative elements, things like that. Industry trends. This is very specific to product reviews because the reviewers need to understand the product and know the competitors' evolution of their particular industry. So you want to look at specific language that identifies why the consumer needs this product and how this version is better than the previous model or any other model. Yeah. Then there is emotive language. Is there more? There is more. Oh my lord, there was so much in this. I forgot. Okay, emotive language. So if the reviewer likes the product and is recommending the product, they're gonna have words with positive connotations that capture the pleasant emotions. If they don't like the product, then there is going to be more emotive language that indicates their disappointment or dissatisfaction with the product. It's a review, guys. Of course, there's going to be evaluative language because they're trying to evaluate the product. You want to look for keywords and sentences that evaluate the product and comment on quality directly. There is, things like that. That's a good example. Okay. Sorry, I needed food in me to function. Okay. Product specification. So when you're writing a product review, you need to have specifications of the product because many consumers would want to know the technical aspects of the product. So if it's a computer, what processor does it have? If it's a phone, how many cameras does it have? How many pixels? What's the battery life like? Things like, there's a lot. There's product features, so not just the specs, but special features. So things that are appearance-wise, functionality-wise, that are specific to this phone. So for example, for the new iPhone, things like Apple Intelligence is a product feature. Things like the 3 cameras and things like that, those are specs. The features are more like software related or appearance related, and the specs are more like specific to phones. Jargon, technical jargon, so anything that's very specific to that specific industry where it like basically shows the topic specific terminology that the writer has, and that makes it specific to the industry that they're talking about. And then when there's a review, there's always going to be some comparisons to competition products, because you want to evaluate whether this product is better or worse than other products in the market already. And they need to know value for money, so they need to know whether this exact product will match up to other products that exist already. Hyperlinks that allow a online reader to easily visit the company websites of competitors, any other content the reviewer wants to share, things like that, always included. That's everything for product review. Questions while I eat this peanut bar? No questions? Okay. Travel writing. So, travel writing is a lot more personal, because a lot of times it will be less like there is more, sorry. I don't have any questions. No, it's okay. What was I saying? Yeah, so travel writing will often be more personal. I'll finish this thought before this. Sorry, there's just a lot. Bro, LangLit is so bad with this. Like, okay. That's it. That's the last one. Travel writing is the last one, and then we're going into lit. Trust. Travel writing is the last one, and then Lang and Lit kids can, like, you don't have to stay. Although you can if you want, because some of the things I say will be good for paper 2. No, guys, this is not even every single text type that you have, by the way. This is just stuff that I randomly picked out of the list. There's so many more. Not me going back and forth between CS and English. Oh, we done. This is the last one. Trust. Yeah. So it'll be a lot more personal, because you're talking about your experience not your experience, sorry. The writer is talking about their experience traveling. The only times it'll be more formal is if it's advertising a specific place, if they're sponsored, things like that. So yeah, things to look out for. Personal experiences. It's full of first-hand travel experiences. It's usually in the first-person point of view. It's what gives the piece credibility, because it's usually going to be a blogger or a well-known influencer who's talking about their experience in that place. Proper nouns. There's going to be a lot of proper nouns. Key hotels, restaurants, landmarks, and things like that are very specific to the place that they're talking about. Destination information, names, dates, customs, etiquette, a lot of things. There's specific things that are about that destination that people want to be informed about, because they're trying to use things like travel writing to indicate how they're meant to act when they're there, or whether or not they should go there in the first place, things like that will make the traveler / reader feel comfortable to go there, basically. There's going to be a lot of descriptive language, because, well, they're trying to describe their experience there. But yeah, so powerful verbs, adjectives, adverbs that provoke an emotional response from the reader. There's also visuals and links, where images are really powerful for destinations. So, for example, everyone knows, like, the blue waters of Maldives and things like that. Like, those are visuals that stick with you regardless of who the travel writer was or what it is that attracts the person to the place, basically. There's headings and subtitles, so general structure. There's going to be subheadings, things like that, structural divisions. So they're going to talk about, either they can go through like itineraries, so they're going to be like, day 1 I did this, day 2 I did this, day 3 I did this, or they can be like, this is what I visited, this is where I stayed, this is where I ate food, things like that. Advice. So travel writing is usually for advice, because people want to get advice about itineraries, pricing, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what are things that are must-haves, things like that. There's also tone. So the writer's tone should match their opinion. So if they don't like a place, they're going to have a more negative tone. If they like the place, they're going to have a more positive tone. That's dependent on their actual opinion of the place. Oh my lord. Okay. Yeah, verbs. So they're going to use things like... Most verbs will be in past tense, but then there will also be some modality verbs where it'll be like, oh, you must do this when you're there. Oh, you should do this when you're there. Oh, you should not do this when you're there. Which shouldn't be missed, basically. And then there will sometimes be promotions and advertising if the blogger or the travel writer has is sponsored or funded by organizations or businesses. If their trip was sponsored, things like that would be promoted and advertised more than others. And then you also have to alter your interpretation of what the text is about, because if it's sponsored or promote like a promotion for something, then the person likely did not pay the full price for any of it. So therefore, the worth in their eyes and the worth in your eyes changes. Yeah, that's everything. We're gonna go into lit very soon. But are there any questions? Are there any questions at all regarding anything Lang and Lit related? That doesn't have to be paper 1. No, this is done. Next is just literature for the literature kids, for the lit kids, for the non-Lang and Lit kids. Which is why I'm saying, before we go into the lit things, are there any and all questions related to paper 1's text types, not related to text types, related to paper 2, anything? I'm here to answer. What's the lit student? Okay, no, the lit things you don't need to know as a LangLit student. You can go if you want to go. I'm not, because I'm still going to be here. If you want to leave, you can leave. I'm talking about, if you have questions, ask questions. If you want to go, you can go. Feel free. We're done. The next is just literature stuff for literature students, not Lang and Lit students. It's for literature students only. In lit stuff, I'm talking about prose, poetry, and so value for the promotion and advertising part. So the thing there is, if the travel writer was the travel writer's trip was paid for by a company, their opinions of value might not be the same as your opinions of value, because you're not paying the same, well, they didn't pay the same amount of money that you would be paying if you went to the same place. This is not anything related to English B, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Yeah, if there's questions, feel free to ask. If there's no questions, feel free to go. If there's questions that come up after this session, just put them in the English chat and I will happily answer them. If you want to stick around, you can stick around, because some of this might be helpful in paper 2 for you, maybe. But you don't have to. Prose is first, yes. Will there be a session for English B? I don't think there's an English B host, so probably not, I'm inclined to say. Oh my lord, go to sleep, guys. If it's late for you, go to sleep. If it's early for you, go eat, do whatever necessary. Other than the lit kids. The lit kids have to be here, unfortunately. Yeah, no worries. Again, if you have more questions, feel free to ask them in the English LangLit chat, and I will get around to it eventually. people have texted me about marking their paper ones and twos. I'm really, really swamped at the moment because I have like assessments starting tomorrow that get released tomorrow, and I have the week to write them. But if I get freer towards the end of the week, I might be able to answer a few things. Yeah, sorry, I completely lost that. Do not share your time zone, please. I deleted your message, but don't share your time zone. No, it's okay, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Usually, IBA, I would warn you, IBA doesn't work in stage chat, so it's a bit of a problem. What else was I gonna say? Yeah, so if people want me to mark their papers, I'm sorry because I can't right now, but if you need it, like absolutely need it, DM me and I'll see if I can make time towards the end of this week or start of next week. But no promises. No, there's no way to configure it better because people will try to like basically circumvent filters. So yeah, people will try to circumvent it. So then we want to cover as many bases as possible, even if that means triggering it unnecessarily. It's just the shit we have to do for exam mode is like a little bit insane, but you know. Yeah, it's sorry, the shit we have to do for exam mode and for Discord terms of service and things like that is just tiring, but we'd rather be safe than sorry. We'd like this community to stay up for as long as possible. Yeah, because a lot of it is not in our control. It's a Discord terms of service thing. It's not a mod team thing. But yeah, if there's no questions, y'all can go if you want. We're gonna go into literary. Before we go into literary, I'm gonna go get water really quickly because I haven't had any water in like 3 hours and I need water. So give me like a couple minutes and then I will be back. And then we'll go into lit texts. I will do another ping after I come back with water, to let the lit kids know that we're gonna start with lit. Okay, one sec, I'll be back. returned. One sec. Let me just ping English LangLit. Okay, I have pinged chat, so hopefully they should all be joining in, maybe. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about literary texts, which is a literature only thing, but some of it can still be useful for LangLit students because it's from, what's it called? In paper 2 is what I meant. No, because you can't, well, kind of. Prose, nonfiction, kind of. But, like, this is more specific to just literary texts. So I'm going to talk about prose, conventions of, like, prose fiction and prose nonfiction and things like that. Is just text. Articles and stuff is still technically like a little bit visual, little bit textual. One second. I got myself some snacks because I need like food to function. Okay. First, prose. Prose is any written work that follows a basic grammatical structure with words and phrases arranged into continuous lines. That's the definition I found from like a session like 3 years ago, things like that. So prose usually follows the conventions of setting, plot, and characterization, which will inform the direction of your analysis. These three conventions are supplemented by punctuation and literary devices. So punctuation in terms of structuring, implicit structuring, and literary devices, which are, you all know what literary devices are. I'm not gonna explain. Okay, first is setting. Setting is, there's multiple things to discuss with setting. First is where and when, if that's relevant, does your text take place. So you want to go from, the general advice I have for you is you want to go from small to big. So you want to go from where does the story physically take place? So where are the characters? Where is that place situated? In a town, in a country? What time period is that situated in? Things like that. And basically go from, okay, where is the scene happening? Where is the thing let me give you a better example. For example, if it's a married couple, and it's a scene of a married couple. They're in their bedroom. That bedroom is in their house. That house is in a small town. That small town is in 1970s USA. Like, things like that. So you want to go from, like, really basic to the wider setting context of the wider context of the setting. Next is, how is this portrayed? So what devices, what features are being used to construct settings in your works. Is there visual, auditory? Is it visual? Are there visual devices? Are there auditory devices? Is just description? Is it imagery, things like that? Is it through a specific perspective? Is it through narrative structure? What is indicating that the setting is what it is to you from this section? From this excerpt, basically. And then how does the setting that exists influence its effect on the reader? So you're going to talk about what are the connotations of a specific setting. How might that relate to themes, symbols, motifs, etc. of a text? How does that elicit a response from the reader? How does it inform the reader? How does it stimulate the reader? Things like that. That's all part of setting. Okay, questions? Questions? No questions? Someone's typing, so I will wait. I think that's an informed decision that you can make based on what the question is. But in general, setting is something that you can pretty much always discuss, I think. Because it's relevant very often. Yeah, it does depend on the question. You can just use it okay, the way I'm going to say this is you shouldn't use it that as the only convention, but you can say that it's like a supporting convention, like the setting underlines the importance of something or something like that. You don't have to always mention it, but it's another convention that you need to know. The difference between prose and prose and drama is like, drama will always be dialogues and stage directions and things like that. Prose will just be like a description from a point of view. Whether that be third person, whether that be first person. Drama is always from the perspective of the audience. So you're as if you're seeing it happen on a stage. So there will be dialogue, there will be stage instructions. You can see. No, not quotes. Dialogues are different to quotes. Quotes are like people are saying. Dialogue is like person A, person B. Oh. Can you send what your text is? Because then you should be. I mean, generally speaking, dialogue should fall into drama and not into prose. Okay. I don't think there's any questions on setting. Unless there are, and people are typing now. If there are, you can still put them in chat, and I will still take a look. Okay. Next is the semantic fields of plot structure. Plots of fiction. This is fiction. Follow Freytag's pyramid, which is this funny little graph. I don't know why it's called a pyramid. It's literally a graph. They should just call it a graph, but you know, I don't name things. But this Freytag's pyramid is general plot structure, where this is how most fiction plots will be mapped out, where it starts with the exposition. The exposition is where the setup happens. So it'll describe the setting, it'll describe some of the characters, you'll be introduced to what the context is. Basically, it's world building. The inciting incident will be something that results in some kind of change. This is going to be very dumb, but for example, I'm going to use Harry Potter as an example. The first few chapters, you're getting used to Harry being in the what's their name? Dudley's house. They were Harry being abused basically, but like you get used to him, like you see what his internal relationship is with the Dudleys, you see him living under the cupboard, you see all of that. That's the exposition. The inciting incident is when the letters start coming for him to go to Hogwarts. The rising action is basically everything that happens in between the inciting incident and the climax. Where, for example, in the case of Harry Potter, he goes to Hogwarts, he learns people's names, he figures out he's famous, he finds out who Voldemort is, all of that is all part of the rising action. Because he's learning new things, he's changing, he's growing. Until the climax. The climax is where they go. For anyone who doesn't know Harry Potter 1, I'm sorry if I'm about to spoil it for you, but you should know what it is. Anyway. Is where they go into they try to go find the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone, whatever you call it. That's the climax. So they're going through all of that. They're fighting against different rooms. And then at the end, he's fighting against Professor Quirrell and Voldemort. All of that is the climax. And then the falling action is the aftermath. So it's basically where the basically it's things are starting to calm down after the climax happens. So like Harry's in the hospital with the nurse, basically getting healed up, talking to Dumbledore about his experience, things like that. Like, it's becoming normal. And then resolution is when everything is chill. Like, we're back to the new normal. So usually this is a paper one. This is still paper one for lit kids. I'm just trying to use Harry Potter as an example to explain plot structure. But like, the resolution will always be at a place higher. You can just put it in here, I don't mind. So the resolution will always end in a different place to where the exposition was, because there's certain change that the characters have gone through that will lead them to be in a new normal state. It will not be back to where the exposition was in the beginning. So they're not returned to their original positions. They're in a new, quote unquote, new normal. So that's why this graph ends like here instead of going back all the way down, because the falling action doesn't bring it back down to where the exposition was in the beginning. It's just bringing it down to a more stable place than it was at the climax, but a different place from the exposition. One thing that you need to know, the reason why plot structure is important is because, for example, if you get a prose extract in your paper one, you want to try to be able to recognize what like point in the plot it is. Like, you don't have to know exactly what it is, but you have to try. Yeah, so this is still prose, because this is not okay. The way it differs from drama is, in drama it will say the character's name and then the dialogue that they say. A character's name and then the dialogue that they say. This is still a conversation. This is still describing from a specific point of view. So this is still prose. basically the difference is, for example, if I'm describing something that's happening right now, I'm saying, he said in quotes, hold on, let me think this. Versus exclaimed versus that's the difference. So the first is prose because it's being reported. The second is drama because that person is saying the actual line. That's how you identify which one's prose and which one's drama. There are more differences because there are two different types of, themes. Yeah, okay. Do we understand plot? Before we go into characterization, do we understand the basic plot structure? Otherwise also known as the Freytag's pyramid. Questions? Lori might have fallen asleep. Okay. Characterization. So there's two different types of characterization. There's direct characterization and indirect characterization. 1 second. I have to chug water. Okay. So direct characterization is when the author goes on to describe or specifically show what the character is like. So whether that be physical experience, how they act, how they react, how they themselves talk, who do they talk to, how do they talk to who, when they're talking to different people. That's all direct characterization. Indirect characterization is either through an internal monologue where it's in the first person point of view, so it's an internal monologue of the character, so you can infer more things about what they're like without it being an explicit it being said explicitly. It's just things you learn along the way based on how they talk, how they act, what their thoughts are while they're interacting with different people, how other people react to them. And it's all just subtext. So the indirect characterization is mostly just inference, where you're inferring all the unsaid things from from the characters' interactions or their thoughts if it's in the first person point of view. But sometimes thoughts will also be given in the third person point of view, but that depends on the text type. There's two types of characterization, and then there's two types of characters. There's static characters and dynamic characters. So static characters don't change throughout the work. They reflect certain very specific ideas or stereotypes, and they're very specific to like who they are. They stay in one place, and they're a constant throughout the work. Dynamic characters are transformative. The main characters are usually dynamic characters because they go through some kind of change and they shape the contextual environment. They change how they change their perspectives based on where they are, and how they react and act is based on the context of like setting and plot, but also they change as the plot goes along. So they will go through some kind of change, whether that be in terms of ideology or whether that be in terms of physical or something like that. But they will always go through some kind of change. There's also things called character foils or foiled characters, where there are two characters that are directly contrasting of each other that highlights the qualities of both characters. So, for example, I'm trying to think if there's a book that you all know. I'm trying to think in Harry Potter, are there character foils? No, okay, I'm just going to use an example of my own. Let's say there's like it could be someone's a pessimist, someone's an optimist. It could also be something more wider. If there's like, for example, a priest and a principal in a Catholic school. I've used this example before, so if some of you think that I've said this before, I have. The priest in the Catholic school represents religion, and the principal represents education. And their character foils can be represented in many different ways, but they highlight what the other is either missing or is different to them. So, for example, a principal might be behind a table, always sat down, always in a more subversive position, but they are still authoritative. While a priest, while authoritative, stands in front at an altar, for example, or gives sermons and speaks to the people, while also being somewhat relatable, trying to be personable, trying to connect with people. So they're character foils of each other, because where they stand when they speak, how they are, how they act, how they react, how they interact with other people are exact opposites of each other and exact contrasting. So you highlight different aspects of both of their personalities, basically, or their characterizations. Okay, before I go into graphic analysis, questions? Okay. So, graphic analysis is for the comic/graphic novel part, which I did talk a lot about this in the comic session of the LangLit, but in graphic novels, you do want to talk about panel transitions. I've talked about all of this before, so I'm not going to go over it again, but you do want to see what transitions are being used, why are they being used that way, what is the author's intention, how does this impact the amount of closure needed for the audience, because for example, if it's going from a scene to another scene and the first scene was really intense and something was going on, and it all of a sudden switches to a normal scene with other characters that you probably don't care as much about, that is going to require a lot of like closure as a reader, because you're going to be like, no, but what's going to happen, and you're going to want to like skip forward or things like that. So transitions can really be important in that way. There's also cliffhangers. That's one kind of like a scene to scene transition can act as a cliffhanger a lot of times. And then colors, if there are colors, what colors are used the most, what colors are used the least. If it's monochromatic, why is it monochromatic? What does the monochromatic show? What emotions do they invoke? What's the color symbolism? Things like that. There is also scale, size, and graphic weight. So again, like I said, panel structures. How big are the panels? How small are the panels? Are they different types of panels? Is something being within the panels? Is something being exaggerated and made way bigger? Is something showed as really small? Why is it being done this way? What's the symbolism behind it? What's the tension created between things that are really big and things that are really small? Graphic weight emphasizes a lot of things. Why is it emphasizing things? Negative space is used, why is it being used, things like that. Perspective and point of view. So what is in the foreground, background? Is the subject facing towards us? Is the subject facing towards another person? What is the significance of where they're facing? What does it say about the status of a person? So if, for example, in a graphic, someone's sitting down while another person is over their head trying to, like, screaming at them, what does it say about their dynamic? What does it say about their tension? Font and typography. Again, I said a lot of this in the English LangLit part, but you want to look at formatting and fonts. Is it a serif? Is it a sans serif? Is it in a specific style? Is it in is it bolded? Is it left? Is it block letters? Is it cursive? Is it like serif and sans serif? Is so what's on screen right now is a sans serif font where there's no serifs, which is basically like the little like feet. So in Times New Roman, there are these little like edges, right, that make it quote unquote easier to read in terms of from like left to right. That's a serifed font because there's serifs, and then sans serif is just French for without serifs, which are these fonts that are more round, that are more easy, like where they're used is different. So like Times New Roman and Cambria and Garamond and things like that all are serif fonts, and those are usually used for print and large text things. But when there's graphics or when there's things like that, it's usually sans serif. So it can either be Comic Sans, Arial, Calibri, things like that. So serif fonts are usually used for more textual things, while sans serif is mostly used for visual, or if it's to stand out, because the serif fonts will like blend into each other, where if it's like really condensed information, it makes it easier to read, but otherwise they're gonna like kind of disappear. But the sans serif fonts stand out more than the serif fonts. And then speech and sound. So who's speaking? Is it a narration? Is it a monologue? Is it a dialogue? Is it onomatopoeia? Is there like the speech bubbles? What type of speech bubble is it? Things like that. Okay, before we go into poetry, questions about prose. Wait, I realized I didn't go through nonfiction. Give me a second. I can talk about it really quickly because I don't think I wrote it. I forgot to write it down. I mean, a lot of the fiction stuff still applies, other than plot, obviously. But let me see. Let me see. I mean, it's mostly it's similar things, but I don't know if I have text specific. Let me see. Things written down. Are there any questions for nonfiction things that I can answer? Because I don't think I have like it written down properly anywhere. But if there's questions, I can answer them. If there's no questions, I will happily move to poetry. Welcome. Hi. We're only dealing with the literature kids for today. Well, not today, for now. Welcome. Ignore me eating. Questions? I'm going to assume there's no questions. Okay. We're going to go into poetry. So poetry is text. Poetry and song lyrics are usually texts with deliberate patterns that usually follow a formal metrical structure and contain line breaks. So they will usually form some kind of meter, and will have a rhythm and a rhyme scheme, and those three things are primarily what they're centered around. Poetry usually requires understanding of narrative or messages and how it can be conveyed stylistically and symbolically oftentimes, because poetry will often be symbolic and abstract rather than direct or like definitory. Yeah. First is rhythm. So rhythm is basically the pacing of a poem. So where is the stresses? Where are you spending longer? What are there more syllabled words or less syllabled words? And are the sentence lengths longer or shorter? Things like that. So a contrast in sentence length will usually show, like, emphasize specific lines, reflect in tone shifts. So if there's a longer sentence, you probably are going to be more drawn to it than you are going to be drawn to... One second, guys. Yeah, you're probably going to be drawn to it more than you're going to be drawn to the... not drawn to it, you're forced to linger on it longer than you're forced to linger on the shorter lines. So you spend more time with it, which means you're gonna probably end up focusing more on it than the shorter sentences. But sometimes the shorter lines will have will be more punchier, will have more meaning, things like that. If there's pauses in pacing, if it's not regular pacing, it will, again, draw emphasis to specific lines and ideas. There's also smoothness in length of the lines, so how smooth they go from one to another will reflect the subject matter, can invoke feelings, because sometimes if it's like really... If it's not smooth at all, then you might feel, like, as a reader, you might feel discombobulated, or just, like, unsettled, basically. But with a smoother, you're more inclined to, like, go through it really quickly, which might be more satisfying. Can also reflect the internal meaning of the poem, right? Because if it's more smooth, then you're more inclined to believe it's positive emotions. It's more, you're stressing less over it. It's smoother, like things like love or happiness or contentment. Those things are like smooth and they feel good. But if there's a stutter between the lines, if there's inadequate, like if there's unregular or dysregulated pacing, then you're inclined to be more frustrated or more there's more struggle there, which might represent the internal struggle of the theme that the poem is touching on. Rhythm is often easily interpretable when dealing with when you're reading poems out loud in your head, because they're more likely to, you're more likely to be able to convey meanings about the poem when you're actually trying to read it out, quote unquote out loud in your head, because you're able to figure out where like either the notches are or the pauses are and things like that, and you'll see where you're lingering more or where you're going smoother. So I would recommend if you get a poem, then you try to read it out loud in your head, to see, yeah, that. Next is rhyme scheme. So rhymes is when words at the end of the line sound similar. So like line and wine, or I don't even know, cat and bat, and you know what rhymes are. I don't know why I'm trying to explain this to you, but there's mainly two types of rhyme schemes that convey things about the subject matter of the poem. There's regular and irregular rhyme schemes. Regular rhyme schemes that follow a given pattern makes the rhythm smoother in general, which is very interrelated. And like I said, if the rhythm is smoother, you're a lot likely to think that it's smoother emotions rather than ones of internal struggle. With irregular rhyme schemes, it causes more of an abrupt and stunted flow, which again is like dysregulated rhythm. So they're quite interrelated in that sense. You don't have to memorize also specific rhyme schemes of poem types, but if you're able to identify whether a poem of a specific common type, so for example, if there's a limerick, if there's a sonnet, if you're able to recognize which one the poem is, that's probably a really useful skill, because then you can be like, you can show your knowledge and understanding, essentially. A, B, A, C, B, C. That's still technically slightly regular, but in terms of irregular, it would just be like if it doesn't rhyme at all, or if it's, well, actually, A, B, A, C, B, C. No, that's still fairly rhyming. Yeah, interrupting the flow. Like if the first and last line rhyme, for example, that's like quite random, you know? Yeah, rhyming will draw attention to the words that rhyme. So the poets will likely pick words that are significant or they want to emphasize in order for them to rhyme. It's not all random. And then there's the meter. Everyone probably knows, like, most commonly the iambic, pentameter, and things like that, where the meter is basically where you're stressing when you're reading it. So what syllables are being stressed, what syllables are left unstressed, and how you're saying them. And there's different combinations of stressed and unstressed syllables which form different combinations. So there's iambs, there's trachees, which you're changing which part of, like, which syllable you're emphasizing and which syllable is muted when you're speaking. Together they form broader metrical structures. So there's the iambic pentameter, I don't know how to say that, sorry. But there's, things like that. And sudden changes in structure may feel awkward, which will draw attention to specific lines and its content. Other than these three main conventions that contribute to the understanding of a poem, you also need to remember that there's a lot of stylistic devices, so like imagery and things like that, which are still very, very important to the analysis. And I'm just not focusing on them because we're focusing on text type specific elements, but you still want to talk about the literary devices, you still want to talk about repetition and things like that, because those are really important in poetry also. These are just conventions that are common for the thing. Next and last, I think, is drama, which is, there's multiple things, but the first thing that is a convention is stage directions. Stage directions can be of two types. There's acting directions and set directions. Acting directions is how the individual is meant to act, where they are, what they're doing, Like, are they pacing? Are they standing? Are they doing something? Like, all of that is set in the acting directions for a drama, which would otherwise be described in a prose. Acting directions basically will further characterize an individual, because you're basically seeing how they act or react when someone's around or when someone's not around, things like that. Set directions are specific to either props, how the set looks like, where they are, what's the setting basically, but also what does the set reveal about like the emotional state of the characters, what does that reveal about the themes and purposes of the text, how does this set like appeal to the audience in some way, is there a emotional impact on the audience, is there a difference in how the audience will interpret the text based on where the set is, are there any props or symbols that are included in the sets that will give more inference to the relationship between different characters and things like that. There's props and costumes. So firstly, what do the props symbolize? What does a character's costume or appearance reveal about their personality? The props are usually almost always used as symbols for something wider. So, for example, I don't know if any of you have done that text, but Doubt, which is a play, has pens as a prop, where the ball pen is a symbol of moving into the new era and the fountain pen is a symbol of tradition, and one character prefers to use one while the other prefers to use the other, which says a lot about their characters as a whole. You can tell that one is more traditional and one is moving forward with as the culture is moving forward. Next is proxemics. Proxemics is, again, the interactions between two characters. So are they close together? Are they far apart? Are they in one specific direction? Are they facing each other? Are they facing away from each other? Are they facing, is one facing one and the other is facing another way? Is someone sitting down? Is someone standing up over them or far away from them? So all of that is how the characters would use the stage in relation with each other, and a lot of this is described in stage directions, but it also just demonstrates whether some characters are more powerful than others, whether some characters are prefer to use their own space or invade other people's space, things like that. I think that's it. Yeah. Yep, that's everything. If there's questions, I will take them now. If there's no questions, feel free to go. I know this was a really long day. Yeah, let me know. Yes, I can. No worries. Okay, this is a personal choice, but I would avoid chronologically. Because what happens when you do it chronologically is you're just going through step by step. You're like, in the beginning they do this, in the middle they do this, in the end they do this. The reason I would go either theme or devices, which is a personal preference, you can do both, or you can do either, is because then you can discuss the authorial choices as a whole throughout the extract, rather than just discussing that they do this specific thing in this specific portion. Because you can say that, because it shows that you can tell the difference between authorial choices, like intentional authorial choices, and just things that happen to be there, basically. Which is why I would prefer not to do it chronologically, personally. But if you want to, you still can. I just think it limits you a little bit in terms of how much you're analyzing overall. But yeah, okay. Yeah. If there's any questions, I will take them. I think Lori fell asleep for sure. Yeah, but if you guys want to leave, feel free. I don't mind. Of course. The slides and the recording will be put up eventually when I get around to it. It was a 3.5-hour session. It was long. So do we most of the time choose between prose, drama, and poetry? I think so. Generally speaking, yeah. Mostly it's gonna be, but they said they like to do what's it called? Prose. No, not prose. They said they want to introduce, what's it called? Graphic novels, I think. I don't know if that's a recent addition, but like that's a possibility. That's a bigger possibility now than it was in previous years, because they're trying to make it more expansive or something. I don't know, bro. Which, yeah, I think it's possible that one of your text types might be a graphic novel. But I would say, generally speaking, personally, if I had to choose, I would probably go for I would go for the drama, because drama is like, personally, this is different for everyone, but for me, drama is fairly easy to I prefer analyzing drama than analyzing like prose or poems, personally. But yeah, yeah, that's it. If there's more questions, I will answer them, but otherwise, thank you for coming. Feel free to do that. Yes, I can do that. I can do the, what's it called, splitting or whatever I don't know what it's called, but you can, I will add timestamps and I will split apart between LangLit and, yeah, I'll do the timestamps. No worries. It'll take me a bit, but I can do it. It's fine. Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, the lit part is just for literature students, not really for LangLit, because LangLit paper 1 is just oh, you're a lit student. I forgot, sorry. Low-key forgot. I keep forgetting who's lit and who's LangLit, sorry. There's too many people. But yeah, if there's questions, I'm here to take them for another 5 minutes. If there's no questions, yeah, feel free to go at any point. I will